Welcome, everyone, to episode 190 of the F.Reality Podcast, a show that augments and virtualizes your life by bringing you the latest new in the VR and AR field. We have an interesting show planned out for all of you, talking about some new updates coming from Oculus or Meta. I mean, everyone is kind of confused how to call them now, but I'm sure that we'll sort it out. Also, we have quite a bit of news in the field of augmented reality coming from Qualcomm and Niantic. We have a special guest on today's show that will give his finest impressions on AWE or AW. I have no idea how to pronounce this thing because it's very hard for a non-native English speaker to pronounce this. If it has only 3 letters and 2 of them you don't pronounce, really hard. Anyway, it's an XR conference that has just occurred in November. And of course, we got some very juicy releases to look forward to, but we'll give the details on those a little bit later. So first, let me introduce you to these fine gentlemen. First up, I learned this week that this country, unfortunately, is going through another lockdown. But fear not, people. This person is most experienced in roaming the streets of City 17, dodging headcrabs, barnacles, and antlions while developing a rather interesting relationship with someone called Jeff. It's our very own Gordon Friesman. It's Nathy. How are you doing? How are you holding out there?
Gordon Friesman?
Friesman?
Yeah. Okay. That sounds legit to me. Yeah. No, I should announce my own metaverse by now. You know, my own virtual civilization where lockdowns don't exist. That's my plan. No, but I'm doing fine. Like there is a lockdown going on as we speak, but I can still go somewhere and have fun. I went to a record store to get some vinyls, and it was amazing. It feels like old school meets new school.
Yeah, I saw the pictures that you posted. Since you got I have to say you have a very good taste in music there. I saw some Creedence Clearwater Revival. I saw the Doors, the Byrds. Look at that. Look at those. Wow. Good choice.
I got a question for you, Nathy, though. Do you have a record player?
Yeah, I do have. Of course. Well, I know. The funny part is, I spoke to some of my, let's say, colleague generation friends, and they were like, "Oh, but so you can put these on the wall, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, but you can also play them." Because a lot of people see it as pure decoration, you know, and it's something that you don't necessarily have to play. But it's great. I have like a record player that is like digital. So I just connect it to my computer and listen through my headphones. It's also having this Bluetooth function, so I can use my wireless speakers on my TV. And it also has like speakers on it, like on the record player itself. So you can just put it wherever you want and listen to music. So it's a modern record player, but it's amazing. And it's like, you know, Spotify is great, but being able to actually like have to do the effort to buy like 10 songs for a lot of money. For the money I buy one record, I could have like 6 months of Spotify, you know what I mean? But it's just, it's just the charm of it. And it has a soul to it. And it's just kind of fun to collect that stuff too, and just have it in your hands instead of like clicking with your mouse on the next song or swiping through your phone to find something. It's just romantic in a way.
You get bonus points from me for audio immersion as your as a specific highlight for the week. I think it's the first place where I first felt like I wasn't in my own space was music. Definitely, it can take you away. Sounds awesome. You have to tell us which one's your favorite after a couple of weeks listening.
Ooh, well, it's gonna be hard. I mean, I'm still collecting, and it's kind of cool. Like, this is a recommendation. I forgot the name. I think it's called Discogs. It's like an app where you can scan your vinyls, add them to your collection as like a profile thing, and then you can become friends with others, see what they have, share the music, or trade them or sell them. And there's also a map, a Google Maps thing, where you can see all the vinyls over the world that are getting sold. So if you're looking for a certain thing, then you can see where it is. So sometimes it shows up like United States, and then some kind of like store in the West. And it's kind of like, oh, cool. So I should go there to buy it. And you can just let them ship it to you, or even like Tokyo and stuff. So I had like a vinyl of like Daft Punk, and apparently there is a a Japanese version of it too, with a different kind of cover. I was like, well, I want that one. So you can just find that through that app. Yeah, it's really cool. It's a hobby. It's
nice. Great. It's great to hear that you're finding some things to do to pass the time when you're in a situation that should be avoidable. All right, then the next guy that I'm going to introduce. The last time this guy went on a holiday was back in 2018. And this has nothing to do with the current pandemic, but with the fact that Skyrim then released on the VRCover platforms. And now the anniversary edition has just released. So I'm honestly a little bit surprised that he made it to today's show instead of dragging Lydia into another so-called adventure. It's none other than ZimDoc 5.
Oh man, Rowdy. You've outdone yourself with that introduction. Thank you. The Lydia reference definitely took my breath away there for a minute.
So does she?
Yeah. I'm a little bit in limbo with Skyrim. Yeah, Skyrim landed and it was pretty cool that they've launched a new version with new thing. Obviously, someone's going to VR mod it at some point. Right now, it's not. So all it did was attract me back to playing again. So I went along to my mod station and upgraded all these mods and launched the game, and it wouldn't launch. And then it was broken for hours, and I was like, shit, I just planned to stream, and this isn't going to work. And I got it working, but then the stream had crashed. Oh my God, it was a bit of a nightmare. And even today, I spent 3 hours trying to get it back to working. I was literally pumping the life back into my 300-hour save file, trying to get it back working, which I did. It's working. It's not quite stable, but it is working. So there's some hope yet. But that's Skyrim. I have, that was one heartbreak, and the other heartbreak we'll talk about a little bit later, which is something that Oculus did. But in terms of highlights, I'd have to call out probably Arcsmith, which is an older game now. I mean, it launched several months back. Maybe even last year? No, earlier this year, I think.
No, it didn't. It's not even that long ago, but it just kind of had like a shadowy launch in a way.
Yeah, it really didn't get much fanfare, and I can totally understand why, because the first half hour, 40 minutes is kind of like a kind of slow-paced tutorial, and basically what you do in Arcsmith is you're putting together electrical components like a speaker, a power sink, heat sink, power generator, and you try to build things in 3D. And the cool thing that really hooked me in a very much in a gadgeteer type fashion is that you have to put components together in a way that the whole assembly isn't going to fail. And if it fails, it just kind of blows up, it smokes, all this kind of stuff. And so I got to the stage where I'd assembled a radio and some other electronic gadget, but you have to allow electricity to flow through the device in a certain direction, deal with thermal dynamics as well, have a heat sink and things like that. So it just really caught my brain in a fun way. And it's one of those games that, what Nathan was saying, it didn't really launch with much fanfare. So I would recommend anyone who's into not so much puzzle games, but more engineering type games. I would count probably things like Wrench and Gadgeteer you need to engineer a solution. And it's somewhat freeform. It's not totally freeform, but it's somewhat freeform how you get to the end state. And it's fun, and it's available on Quest. So check that out if you're in the mood for an engineering type game. Yeah.
It sounds like something that Mike would probably enjoy as well.
I would think so. I'll bet you he bypassed it, and he probably should, spend a chunk of his vacation away from VR when he's back home, to just kind of catch up on his email and then play a little Arcsmith. There you go. Specific for Mike.
Good choice. All right. Next up is our special guest for today. It's Eric Hartley. To many VR enthusiasts, he's a very familiar face, and he's also a good friend of the show for, pretty much since the very beginning. So he's someone who's going from conference to gig to another conference, and this is kind of how Eric spends all of his free time. And he luckily still found at least a little bit of time to talk about his passion for VR on today's show. So how have you been, mate?
It's a little exhausting to go from show to show
to be on the show. Oh, okay.
To be on,
very welcome.
but to be on this show is a pleasure. I did spend 3 days at you can call it either AWE or AW. The founder kept interchanging it,
Okay.
which is it's Augmented World Expo. They had it out here in California for mainly people in the industry to network more than anything else. But they had an excellent expo hall and a lot of really good presentations. So I found myself, of course, with the phone in the background, but I apologize for that. I found myself really going through the motions of panel to panel to panel to panel on Tuesday, and then rushing the expo hall on Wednesday and Thursday. But I did also find some time to do some VR at home beforehand.
Nice.
2 quick apps that I want to shout out. Shapes XR, which is by the folks that did Tavori. I think their company name is now Tavori. Way back in the early Vive and CV1 days. That application was kind of a digital modeling and animation style application. Shapes XR is a little bit more simplistic. It's a prototyping and design app, but you can use it collaboratively. So they have tons of different models and things of that nature that you can just drop in. I built a scene with like a little spaceship that I created, and then I had a guy seated already in the seated position, built a chair for him, put him in front of a table with a laptop and put a headset on him, so he was in that virtual world with the spacecraft, which is pretty cool. And it took like 5 minutes to do that. So it's a very quick iterative ideation machine, basically. I think it came out Thursday. It's free, but there's also a subscription model for it. And then the other game that I played that was a lot of fun was Resist, new game from the Binary Mill. That one it starts out where you're swinging like Spider-Man essentially through a city. Then you get a jetpack, and then I forgot all about the swinging because I love the jetpack. But you get a jetpack, and you're fighting for the resistance. And what I liked about it more than anything else was it's kind of got combinations of all those games that I've loved over the past 5 years. It's got really good like directional flow for either using head or controller turn. It's got Space Pirate Trainer style drones that pop up all over the place when you're on a grounded level. Just really well designed.
That one reminded me of Megaton Rainfall, just the look of how it plays.
Yes.
And it's been actually quite a few years now since we've had like a proper superhero-y game. So it's interesting to see those mechanics come back. But that studio keeps chewing through its ideas, and this is the latest one. Looks like it plays pretty smooth, and a lot of VR creators are talking well about it. So.
And what platform is that game on? Is it only on Quest, or is it also for PC VR?
I'm actually not sure. I played it on Quest 2. I don't know if it's Quest 2 exclusive or Quest and Quest 2. And I haven't checked to see if it's on PC or not.
Yeah.
All right, cool. That's cool.
Nice.
All right, thanks for sharing that. What about the chat, Nathy? Have they been up to anything special these past couple of weeks?
Yeah, so we have, let me see, Wado UK, who has mostly been playing Forza Horizon 5. That's not a VR game, by the way, although, well, some people, like, I'm sure PD has a way to do this again.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, PD approves with 4 packs, I guess. But he also played some Assetto Corsa, that is in VR, and the Star Wars pinball as well. And then we have Dar's Angel, who dove into Hypercycle and Dreams. So Dreams is this whole universe where people make their own experiences and stuff, and apparently there's someone who made Hypercycle, and it's like Tron light cycles, but in VR, and it's epic AF. So yeah, and then last but not least, we have Norman Robinson, who just wants to say greetings from the Bermuda Islands.
Oh,
and
Mike changes username. No.
Yeah, and since this message, we have never heard of this man ever again. He disappeared, like it's completely radio silent. I don't know what happened, but you know. Yeah, so there you go. Great.
And then last but, well, hopefully not least, my name is Rowdy. I am replacing Mike as host for today's show, as he's currently on a little holiday. Many of you thought probably that he was wearing a Halloween outfit last week, but As a matter of fact, it was his holiday outfit, and he just had to leave straight after the show.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
very good.
You should be wearing that right now.
Yeah, you should be wearing
Absolutely.
that right now. Anyway. So before we go into the most recent news, I'll drop a quick word from our first sponsor for today's show, and that is VRCover. So they make full replacement interface kits for a wide variety of different VR headsets that feel more than just a replacement, but are rather a very solid upgrade. All of us use their products on pretty much every headset that we own. They're easily swappable as they also have Velcro on them, which makes it very easy if you are demoing VR. They also make specific grips for your controllers that give you that knuckles feeling while you're still using your own original controller. They currently have a big Black Friday sale going on with up to 70% off of their products, which means that it's the ideal moment to pick up one of these bad boys. You can check out their full range of their products on their website, which we have listed in the description down below.
Oh, and knuckles feeling? So knuckles in like Sonic or...
Wait, I mean, you're the one who has the knuckle. Do you actually still use the knuckle controllers themselves when you play with T-Rex?
I mean, some people call them, they were called knuckles when they were prototypes, right? But I think most people are going to be like, the heck are knuckles?
I still call them the knuckles.
That reminds me a bit of me still saying Oculus Quest, and it's like, the heck is an Oculus Quest nowadays?
That stuff just confuses the heck out of me. What I mean is those kind of like what VRCover has done is like they replace like some kind of like a band that allows you to like have the controllers in your hand and you don't need to hold them. It's hands-free, which is a really nice way of like trying to play with VR. In a more interactive way. So really appreciate them sponsoring this episode. But with that being said, I guess that we should dive into the news. And first up is who other than Oculus, because Oculus, not Meta, Oculus announced new updates for the Meta Quest on their Oculus blog in their version 34 update. I have no idea like what to call these because like it gets even more confusing when I start reading out what the updates are like. So they have new voice commands. You can now pause and play in Oculus TV. You can show or hide your move stats. You can open the settings app and even ask simple questions such as what is the weather like today, or how many calories are in 3x in case you're cooking while you're playing VR or something. I don't know. I find it kind of weird that those are the kind of questions you can ask, but that's how it is now. They also announced Android phone notifications that was previously already available for iOS users in the version 29 update back in May, but they finally came to their senses and integrated this as well in the better mobile platform. To use this, you need to set up phone notifications via the Oculus app and then enable them via the Oculus app or in your headset settings menu. If your partner also uses your headset, you don't need to worry according to Oculus because setting up a multi-user account will keep your notifications still safe and sound. Do any of you guys use that actually, like your notifications inside of your Oculus headset?
No, they first popped up for a while, when I got my stock Quest. But then after I was like, this is very annoying, and you get all these like nonsense messages that don't add anything. But I think like I said something this week about like notification being immersion breaking. But I would say the notifications that the Quest have right now are immersion breaking. And if they're more interactive in some way or kind of blending with the rest of what you're doing, then I don't think it's that bad.
Yeah, I don't use it because they haven't had Android support until now, right? So I was planning to try, but I don't get that many. Like I'm not loaded with messages. My phone's going off maybe, I don't know, 20 times a day or something. So it's not too bad. But again, if you're a live streamer, and then you have notifications going off, you probably don't want that going out to the web. I
don't know what message you're talking about, but
your angry missus, you didn't take the garbage out, or whatever. And, it's like, honey, not right now. Not the good time. So that part is that. But I mean, this update also, it shook me a little bit because one of the changes that several developers actually got in touch with me about, because we use the multi-account feature, and so this is what broke my heart actually a little bit earlier. From version 34 forward, I'm going to say there's two different ways you can play with multiple people, including I'll say one purchase license of a game. One is very much like what you have with Steam or what you have with like a Nintendo Switch, where it's kind of a parent-child or master-slave setup. And that's Oculus's kind of own application setup. And then games like Walkabout Mini Golf and stuff like that, they have the capability to punch in a room code and have multiple people join in. And until this most recent update, you could have, like I have 3 headsets running on my account, and I can have 3 instances of ZimTalk 5 join the same room, and it means that I can play with, family and friends with my headsets co-located, in the same place, and not needing additional licenses or anything like that. And it's really, really helpful for getting especially kids in, because one of the things as a parent is like, if the game's 40 quid, it's like I'm not spending 160 pounds on a single game, especially when my kids are going to get fed up in 20 minutes most likely and just bugger off, so it kind of cuts out, if that remains as a thing that Oculus isn't allowing. It's annoying because it's not what developers want. At least 3 developers with one of these room code based games have said, like, we don't want this, we want to be able to do it, but at the moment there's a wall. And then their own mechanism essentially enforces you to have a Facebook or a Meta account. So you'd need an individual one of those for every player. And then, of course, the way that system normally works is that, say you have 2 headsets, you can actually have both headsets, you start over from scratch, like factory reset, install your primary account. So let's say that's ZimTalk 5. And then my wife could be, the child account on one of them, and that could be her headset. But anytime I'm not using my library, she can play the games that I've got. And so that works well for a lot of people, but it doesn't work well in the kid case. So unfortunately,
I was gonna come on to that a little bit later, but we could talk about this now because it was actually on it was a Reddit post, right, that brought up this issue. And the Reddit post actually mentioned that this was as of version 33. So that's the version that was already current.
Possible.
That you can no longer use the same account on multiple devices to play the same game. And this was both the case for the Quest 1 and the Quest 2. And it happened for that particular user, which went by the name of Thornhawk in both Demio and also Walkabout Mini Golf. So what happens actually is that a pop-up comes up that says, you need to have multiple accounts. And you can just hit dismiss on that pop-up and still play together. But after 10 seconds, that pop-up will return. You can hit dismiss again, which is very intrusive and not an ideal way. There was another user by the name of Real Blush, and I don't know if this is the exact method that you're describing as well, because he described the way around this. And he explained here that you could set up multiple accounts on a second Quest and then activate app sharing on your main account, which would then allow you to play a game on 2 quests simultaneously, even if you bought it only on one account. Is that the same method that you were describing then as well?
That's like a gray zone of what I was describing. So it's like in the middle of and there's another method as well that apparently if you turn off the application sharing mechanism, so the official Oculus one, if you switch that off, it's said, although I haven't tested it myself yet, that you might be able to connect. I can say that App Lab games are affected by this as well, which is a real kick to the balls, because a lot of indie devs allow this kind of room code type multiplayer, Oceancraft being one. I had my kids and some kids in another family doing that, and they were, again, getting pestered by that pop-up menu, which is warning you that you're not allowed to do 2 accounts at once. Slightly more convenient, not much, but slightly more convenient than the Steam pop-up of, sorry, Zim's using his library, you can't use that game. And if you've ever done that kind of family or friend sharing, it's super helpful. I think it's a really smart way to kind of get people to play games. And actually where it ends up with, I'll say with kids and kind of a family organization, is like someone's playing it, and when they're playing it enough or they're showing interest in it, it's like a demo mode almost. Then they end up with a copy of the game anyway. So it's like advertising, and I think VR, since the very beginning, hasn't had enough. They had demos for a while. We had, obviously, things like Oculus Share, where you could try indie stuff out at the beginning. Now you've got App Lab, and some of that stuff is free, some of it's paid. So, it exists in a variety of formats, but this is just another door that I'd prefer stays open than shut. And Yeah, I hope they change their ways with this, or at least make it clear what they'd like to do with the platform, what they'd like not to do with the platform, in a blog post or something.
It's more like you're saying, like you want to know from them where they want to go with this and what their view on, because right now it's kind of vague what they exactly want to do with it.
Yeah, because they had it open before. Now they put a lock on the gate, and it's like, did you mean to put a lock on the gate? Was that a byproduct, an accident of something else you were doing? But the pop-up kind of tells me they knew that this was, this looks intended to be.
They see it as an exploit, basically, in a way.
I do want to mention a couple of quick things.
Go ahead.
VR chat and Rec Room and those types of applications that have a completely separate login entity still do work, even with the same account on multiple headsets. So there are ways that developers can build out a process, but then you're not using that Oculus ecosystem for multiplayer at all. That probably also means you can't really do a lot of connection between other devices and other platforms. So it's a little sketchy at this point.
We tested Rec Room, and you're right, Rec Room was still functioning. So it looks like anyone who's leveraging that code on the platform. Anyway, it's just another fun change, but I think it's very poorly timed in the run-up to Christmas when people are going to be sharing devices and possibly getting another, a second or a third headset into the house. I think it's just very badly timed.
I'm surprised that Mark hasn't mentioned this yet, because he's always playing Arizona Sunshine.
Yeah, cute.
Right?
He's chugging barbecue sauce, right?
But my impression on this is that they want indeed users to set up multiple accounts so they have an easier way of tracking who is using the device. I think that is the underlying. I mean, the pop-up itself gives me that little bit of an indication as well, that they want to see is this the main user, is this a family user, is this a friend, that they have a better idea of who's using the device as a multiple user.
It is definitely complicated, because if they want to appear as a data company who isn't ingesting the amount of data they're actually ingesting, then I agree. But as has been proven, and there's several white papers on this, VR data, and you'll know this probably better than anyone on the podcast, Rowdy, but VR data is very rich. And it means that, if my daughter's using my headset for 4 minutes, they'll know it's her. You know what I mean? Just by the motions of the physical body and all that, they'll be able to thumbprint her very quickly. I think it's within 30 seconds, but
you can never have enough data.
This is true. What I actually think is there's probably a legal reason why they have, they're like, okay, people have their kids and they have all their policies set around 13 and over, and they can't control something that might end up hurting the company. So they're like, let's shut the doors that might hurt us. That's my opinion. I doubt they want to shut the door, because I don't see a price tag reason. In fact, I see the opposite. I think this drives people away from sales, but let's see where it goes in the future.
So we have Onakazi in chat that mentioned this could be something that's from a firmware update. And I do want to mention, starting with version 34, you get a pop-up that says app sharing is now available on this headset, because they've taken that app sharing feature out of the experimental features and made it just its own option in the settings. So I think a lot of the shift from 33 to 34 is making it more and more apparent and conscious. What I'm speculating is eventually that on-off for app sharing is probably also going to disappear, and it's going to become a feature. So we won't be able to disable that to get that other workaround going. Again, it depends on what direction they're actually planning to go, but that's kind of where I see it leaning potentially.
That makes sense. Good. That makes sense. There were a couple of more things that came with version 34 as well, which are a little bit more exciting than the things we just brought up. But they also announced Space Sense that now enables you to see objects or people that intrude on your Guardian bounds. That does mean that other people, such as large pets or even a chair that's been dragged out of its usual spot, these objects now be highlighted in your headset and surrounded by a pinkish glow is how they describe it. I do wonder if this means that this will be an end to all of those, those hilarious videos of people receiving like a right hook from their loved ones because they got a little bit too excited in VR. But I guess we'll have to see. I hope not. I do find those videos very funny.
I'm super salty, and one of the things I said to my community when we learned about the shutout on the app thing, I said, "Oh great, now I can watch my kids crying on the ground when Daddy's playing and they can't join him." It's like, but yeah, I mean, I am glad. I mean, where I want us to go is at some stage to not have to draw a Guardian. Like I'd really like the headset to just be confident enough, right, that it has features that allows that you can see your cat run in or whatever. It's weird. Like I want to see how that evolves, because is this Space Sense going to kind of be annoying? Because like if you VR in a space like I do, kind of a cramped little office with desk and things, but I'm pretty careful. If that's going to impede and take me out of immersion, like, is there a way I can switch that off? Is this an optional thing? Have any of you played with it yet? I haven't played with it yet.
I played with it a little bit. It you can turn it on and off, but it like, I also have super small space. It saw my laptop immediately, saw my microphone, saw my table, but didn't see the fake pet that I put on the ground until I stepped on it.
What?
So thankfully it was a fake pet.
Was there a pop-up like saying you just stepped on your pet or something like that? Because that would be cool.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah, that
there
would
was
be nice.
not. What I'm basically saying is I think it still needs a little bit of work, because especially something that's close to the floor, it's not really recognizing until it's too late.
But let's be honest, like most people who set up their, like at the start when they do the tutorial, it's like, oh yeah, I need to really do it like around everything. Nowadays, when I make, like, I just do a big circle through like the three walls and it's going outside and stuff just so I can quickly play. I think everyone is doing that at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not recommended. I'm giving a bad example, but but it's true. Everyone is doing it.
And on occasion, I also find that, like, it depends on the update, but I find particularly maybe creators are just hopping in more frequently than others and tend to complain more than others. But from certain version, like version 26 to 7 to 8 to, every so often there's a version that makes my headset go bonkers. Like the latest update, it keeps forgetting, it forgets like mid-game session that there's even a Guardian drawn, and it asked me to reproduce it. It's... Space Pirate Trainer pushing the boundaries also tended to do that. Once you got it stable, it was fine. But like in the setup process, it was really struggling. But I've heard plenty of people who
it's very unstable.
I mean, to be fair, it's really cool technology. I'm glad it exists, and I do think it's like the lead in the industry. And when you have a home-coded version of a Guardian system, God, it feels like so Neanderthal. It really doesn't feel up to scratch. So I appreciate what they're doing. Obviously, it's like this evolution we have to all go through, but I'd love to fast forward to the end if we could.
Of course.
Yeah.
The last bit of update that came with version 34 was the pass-through API. This was earlier released through developers, allowing them to already start creating experience. But now this is also available for consumers as well. And they plan on making some mixed reality apps available soon, both on the Oculus Store, on an App Lab. And I mean, I'm a piano player myself, so a personal favorite of mine was something that was called Magic Keys. Which is also featured by Oculus themselves. It looks really, really cool. It's basically you have the headset on, and I mean, I haven't played it myself because it's as far as I know, it's not out yet. But it like shows you which piano keys you need to press for playing like a certain musical piece, which I think is really cool, especially like for beginner players who want to learn the piano and get like something going like that. And there's a lot of potential that can be done there.
I'd love to have some like master pianists like just calling people hackers and cheaters, using that technique. Like, God damn it, learn it the old school way,
I'm really wondering about all those like Beat Saber players, what they're going to do with that kind of stuff. They're going to be becoming like the new Mozart or something.
I don't know. But I really do think that definitely like the pass-through or even AR for like educational purposes, it's just there's so many things that are untapped there. Like we're going to see in the next 10 years, like so much come into that space. And that was a great example. Really good. Anything that can ease what I think of is not even playing the piano, which seems so lovely and melodic and sells really easily, but just learning to type on a feckin' keyboard, man. Like, did you go through like the schoolyard days where they like put a towel over your hands and you had to mess up and worry about the accuracy percentage and stuff. I mean, if you're in that bracket, like, oh man, that was not easy. I hope they could make that easier for kids these days. So,
yeah, great. So the Oculus news doesn't stop with the only update there, because there's also been a new Quest rendering technique that has been released, this time by Meta. Just to add to the confusion. Yeah, by Meta, apparently.
It sounds like you're saying like, oh, a new company is making this.
Yeah, it's a new completely it is a completely new company.
It's a fair point. Someone who went on holiday might not know the Meta news. So for anyone who doesn't know, Facebook is now Meta. And if that blows your mind, you don't believe us, go check, BBC or something.
Imagine that, yeah.
Anyway, that new Quest rendering technology is now available for developers, and it is called Application Space Warp. And this is fairly similar to what we have on Oculus Rift. The Oculus PC version, at least, is called Asynchronous Space Warp. But it's not entirely the same. I'm going to spare the technical details, but it should produce better results. And they claim with a performance boost of up to 70%, which is really significant.
That's dramatic. 70%?
70% performance boost. So considering the high bar for performance that Oculus sets for its application on their store, while only having a mobile processor in the Quest, I think that this is a fairly big thing, because this allows an application to run basically on half the frame rate, with the system then generating the other frame based on the motion of the previous frame. So this then gives the impression that the app is running at a full frame rate, but it's only rendering half of the required frame. Now, in contrast to like asynchronous space warp, where you had to like select it as a user yourself to turn it on or off, or you could like have that auto select. This is fully controllable by the developer. So it's the developer who has the flexibility to enable this where they believe this is required. It can even be on the fly that they can enable it in a certain portion of their game. That allows you to basically you could aim for 60 frames per second and then have it run at 120 frames, or aim for 30 frames per second, or let's say 36 frames per second, and then have it go all the way to 72.
I'm still trying to wrap my brain. I'm really puzzled here. I'm like trying to figure out, like, engineering wise, how does 70% make sense? There's got to be some processing headroom. Did you say half a frame was being rendered?
No, so half of the amount of frames are being rendered.
Okay. Yeah. So similar to ASW.
And the other one is generated by the technique.
Right. And so similar to the old 90-45 split, where you're rendering 45 frames.
I mean, the technique is different, but indeed, like the kind of result, I guess, is the same, because they're also rendering less frames, but the technique that they use in order to do this is different. They're basically just rendering half the frame rate.
One thing I want to say, just from my experience with ASW, I know it's a different mechanism. There's a different algorithm really at play here. But what ASW did really fantastic job on PC VR was, for example, racing games. Anything that was like high speed with a fair amount of, I'll call it, fixed unmoving object, kind of, if you think about like how JPEGs work. But it wasn't very good at things like Asgard's Wrath, because you have full motion, the full scene is being redrawn. And so when you're interpolating like from frame A to frame C, B gets screwy, and you end up with like these pretty weird aberrational like artifacts in the scene, and it kind of gives kind of like a watercolor feel, almost like you're washing everything through kind of like rain pouring down a glass. It's strange, but I would just say that I'm looking forward to seeing what that does. Obviously, we've all tried Oculus Go with the fixed foveated rendering and know what that kind of peripheral damage that would introduce to certain experiences. But this is like, this affects everything you're seeing. So certain types of content are going to do well with this, and certain types of content, I suspect, are not going to be as fun to play that way.
I haven't really tested out myself because go ahead, Eric.
Guy Godin brought up a good point in chat. Another big difference between ASW on PC and on Quest is, on PC it's system level, so you have that switch to turn it on and off. On Quest, the developers are going to have to add that support into their application.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's a big deal. And the other thing is, I think PlayStation VR already did this from the start.
Yep.
They started at 60 frames per second, ramped up to 120.
Yep.
So I totally agree with what you're saying, Zim. Like racing games like Wipeout and things of that nature play really, really well.
Yeah.
But you do still get some of that weird watercolorness with some of the fast-paced motion games.
Yeah. But it feels like magic, I gotta say. Like when you're looking for frames, when you're looking to play a game that's prettier than your rig can handle, and obviously the Quest 2 has limits, like I'm looking forward to seeing what that means can be brought out, especially if they're dropping, Quest 1 and saying we're now focusing on Quest 2, and that is our new bar. Plus this is great, fantastic, can't wait.
Yeah, certainly, especially because of the enormous push in terms of like performance that they're claiming would allow like bigger titles to like come to a Quest platform or mobile platform like the Quest. I'm just interested in seeing like where this like will lead us in terms of like development and how much of this will actually be used.
I got to think that
the performance,
the way a developer would react to this is, oh great, before my budget to saw back my PC VR content all the way down to the size that'll fit on Quest and perform well, like they might have not considered the project at all, and this might allow them to actually consider it, because it'll cost them less to actually make that port. It's less compression essentially. So yeah. Opens the doors a fair bit, even if not many developers use it. The ones who really want to get their game on Quest and to that audience, which is a very large audience now, they have that door open. So this is really a fundamental shift, and it could lead to a lot of really good releases section updates next year.
Let's hope so.
For replatforms. Right. Yeah.
So that was it for all of the Oculus news, or the meta news, whatever you want to call it. So next up is last episode, we already did a little bit of a dive into the French startup company called Lynx, specifically on their Lynx R1 headset, which is a true mixed reality headset with our on-the-scene reporter, Nathie, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was very fair to say that that this indeed seemed to be a very promising device that did things in a very different way compared to other devices. Very refreshing. And therefore, I'm pretty happy to actually announce that they absolutely smashed their Kickstarter goal of originally 300,000 euros, with more than double the amount coming in at 725,000 euros. Also, therefore, reaching their first stretch goal, which is a free facial interface bat.
Wow.
That's it. That's some great news.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, no, it is great.
Eric, I believe you had the chance to try out the Lynx R1 headset as well. What were your overall first impressions on the device?
I really like it. I've been doing a lot of tinkering with AR devices, and of course spent the last 5 years or so in VR, and it does a really good presentation of, in the demo at least, moving from a VR scene out into a pass-through AR scene and then back. I've only really experienced that once before the Lynx. There was a gentleman that made an application for the Vive Pro that I don't even think ever got released. It was like a whack-a-mole game in AR, and then you go through a portal into the VR experience. But I see the potential there to build these things that you can use both AR and VR at once and kind of blend it together in ways that the other headsets just don't do it yet. I felt like the lenses, it was a little bit weird putting these kind of like triangle shaped things around your eye. But even without the cover, the facial interface, I felt like, I don't know if it was the lenses or the way my eyes were directed or what have you, you could see through your peripheral vision and you could look down, but it didn't feel like it had that light bleed that you get with a lot of the other headsets. It felt very natural. It was a sharp picture. And it's super light, and it's got the best flip up I've had on a device so far. Super sturdy, super strong. Like it's not going to fall back over your face if you're doing something. So pretty impressed overall.
Nice.
Yeah.
You want to say something, maybe?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like as you said, like it's very small, right? And the thing is, when I was, thinking about what I got to experience and stuff, like the lenses are making this headset so small because they're so compact. That's why this whole thing is small, because of the lenses. And a lot of people don't realize that lenses can make a headset a lot bigger, So that's what I got to learn from the fact that I'm like, okay, these lenses look so weird, but then you realize that the headset becomes a lot smaller. You're like, well, this is kind of welcome, So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, they have some pretty amazing specs as well. They have, I think I read 1600 by 1600 LCDs at 90 hertz per eye. Yeah. Specifically, they have low latency color pass-through for augmented reality. The Qualcomm XR2 chipset with 6 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigabytes of internal storage, 6DoF tracking, hand tracking, different cameras, infrared cameras, visible light cameras, Wi-Fi 6, SD card slot, 2 stereo speakers, 4 microphone array. They also have an eye relief kind of setting, and their battery life is estimated at 3 hours.
Yeah.
And impressive specs.
And it like that's what I showed in my video this week that I uploaded, that it also runs Steam VR games. It's still kind of basic, so I don't want to overhype this, but at least it streams VR games, and now they have to work on making it right in terms of like movement and stuff with the controller. So I'm really looking forward to this like getting sold. I think it's like April 2022 that they're aiming for. I don't know if they're going to make that or not, but it's just nice to see someone else making a headset that supports a more open metaverse,
I got a question then because Eric, you've tried both the Vive Flow and the Lynx.
Yes.
Both are $500. Which one and why?
I would go with the Lynx over. They do two different things. First of all,
exactly.
But I would go with the Lynx over the Vive Flow because of the versatility and because of the openness. The Flow is really limited to, right now, a 3DoF controller. They're going to add potentially some hand tracking. I don't know if it'll be gesture-based or full hands. The Lynx has 170-degree Gemini-powered Ultra Leap sensor. Like, that's best in class right now. I would say at the similar price point, I would go with the Lynx. One potential drawback with the Lynx is library, because even though Viveport is limited, there is something, and right now there's not really much of anything for Lynx. I know I talked to Stan for a few minutes at the event. He mentioned he's going to have some pretty big announcements coming over the next couple of months. But right now, I can't say, oh, yeah, they've got these awesome games coming.
There's nothing.
There's nothing yet.
Yeah. No. Great. Thank
you. Makes sense. All right, cool. So now moving a little bit from the VR to the AR, I have Qualcomm. They have announced their Snapdragon Spaces XR developer platform, which is a head-worn AR software suite to support smartphone-tethered AR glasses. It's specifically focused on performance, low power, and human interaction. And to boost their initial development, they are working together with a couple of big names, even to us, such as Felix and Paul Studios. They have Resolution Games in there, who, by the way, announced on stage that they're also making an AR division to further commit to building AR content, for which they are currently hired. They have, I believe, three AR games in development, but whether that is like AR headsets or handheld AR devices, I could not really find out. But anyway, Qualcomm is also partnering together with several hardware companies such as Lenovo, Xiaomi, and Motorola to develop a more cross-device horizontal platform and ecosystem, of which Lenovo's FReality 8.3 smart glasses tethered to a Motorola smartphone will be the first one to use the Snapdragon Spaces platform. So
and I got to check out. Yeah, I got to check out the Snapdragon Spaces, a couple of different types of demo. One of the demos was just dropping you into different scenes that were very non-interactive, but kind of giving you ideas of where you might use the platform. That one wasn't really all that impactful or meaningful, but the other one I got to try was actually a demo where you could actually do a drawing application where you were drawing on your cell phone, but it was building it in the 3D space. And that actually really impressed me. That's one of the things that they focused on, was adding a feature where instead of, right now, most of the AR glasses and headsets use your phone as the controller. similar to the Vive Flow, actually, the way that it works today. And they're now looking at it from the opposite perspective, using the headset as the extension instead of the phone, and using the phone app as the main hub of information. So you could draw your picture on the phone, but it's drawing in the 3D space in front of you. The demo footage that they showed was they drew a turtle in the 3D space, and you could still walk around that turtle and everything, but it was all drawn on a flat screen. And I find that really intriguing.
The thing that always wonders me about these AR glasses is the field of view. I've tried several of those AR glasses, and I've always been disappointed kind of with the field of view. I know that has been improved with the HoloLens 2 already, because Nate tried that out and he gave a first impression on that as well. But yeah, what do you think is the complication for bringing that field of view to a more level that maybe us VR users are used to?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that I did see at the conference, and we'll get into more of that later. But just to mention, the A3 itself is around a 50-degree field of view. So the FReality A3 that they were using the demos for, and that's sort of a standard right now. 42 to 50 seems to be the standard. There are a couple of devices that are doing 90, but they're huge. They take your entire face. There's a lot more weight to it. So I think one of the limits right now, and that's slowly getting taken away by the different ways to project image, is they want to keep it in the lightest form factor possible. They want to keep it in kind of a glasses form. And that requires you to use the smaller field of view in the methods that they're using, because they're using bird bath optics that really you have to basically cut off the top half to reflect down on the lenses themselves. Yeah,
because I'm always so impressed when I see those videos of augmented reality kind of scenes, but and I think that's part of me being so underwhelmed by the first time that I tried them, because I immediately think that's not how it's going to look like. It's such a small kind of field of view that you have in terms of. It's very exciting though. I do find those kind of applications really, really cool, both from a productive kind of level and from a gaming perspective. I think there's a lot of. I think Nate, I think you mentioned already a couple of times that you see AR as something that might even become bigger than virtual reality in itself, and I think I start to see that vision as well. That there's so much potential for AR in today's world as well,
and it goes well together. Eric tried the Lynx. It's that headset, and it's kind of hard to just say it, and you need to really experiencing it. If you get to walk into a universe and then be in VR and then step out of the universe and into the real world again. It's just like opening your mind, and then you suddenly see all these use cases of where it's gonna go, So I think like AR glasses are kind of cool, but I think mixed reality headsets, like you see with Lynx, that's kind of the best middle ground that you can have right now. But I get it. You're not gonna walk outside with those. You're not gonna do that.
Of course.
I must say, I did learn a term here. Bird bath lenses is not something I'd ever heard before, so that will stick with me for life now, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah. There's kind of three versions. There's bird bath, waveguide, and pass through. So the pass through headsets are the ones that really enable the larger field of view, because it's really just going through camera pass through for the most part. And then waveguide has its own system. They've now got it down to a single layer, which gives you better visual fidelity. Things like the Magic Leap and the HoloLens are really kind of stacked, so you get kind of like a rainbow around images in it. The now single panel ones are much cleaner image quality and much better fidelity for things like text, but it's also very small.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity,
just to show
go on.
No.
I was just gonna say, the original and now the name's gone out of my head. Not the Google Glass, but the HoloLens, the first HoloLens.
Sure.
What was the field of view on that approximately? I mean, you said 50 degrees, and I'm trying to.
So the original HoloLens is around 40.
Yeah.
And I think the second HoloLens is either 50 or 52.
Right. Yeah. Because like Rowdy, when I've tried those, it's really been a kind of postage stamp. Maybe a bigger postage stamp, but it kind of feels like some kind of. It feels very cut off, and that's. Like I suppose the real issue is just down to the, like you're saying, just the optics, just the optical logistics. How do I get light through to the user, and at the same time alter it? Like, how do I get something in there in midstream? Yeah. So I think have any of you tried any headsets that are beam direct to retina? Like,
yes, I have. I don't remember the name of this thing.
If he pulls out a headset that beams to retina, I swear.
I do have one. It's here. I just can't retrieve it right now.
Of course he does. Yeah.
That's fine.
I have a headset for everything, Zim.
Yeah. That's pretty neat. But what does that feel like? Because in my head, that was like a fourth option, aside from the waveguide, which is like bounce, bird bath, which is, cut off the top half, as you said. Beam to your retina always seemed dramatic to me, and I was curious if it solves the problem, so to speak.
I mean, it's just light. It's not going to kill you. I hope.
Tell that to the sun. No.
That was the point. So it's again kind of small, to be honest. At least the one that I have. There's no screen door effect because there's nothing in front of the image that's coming to you, so that's a good thing. But it's brighter, and in some cases that's almost as bad as looking at an LCD versus an OLED, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's different, but yeah, they exist. I don't know that it's practical though for most use cases.
Yeah. Don't mind me grinning away here. I was imagining a piece of cardboard with two lasers just poked through it, like pointing at your retina, But
I mean,
it's not going to kill you. You're just going to lose your eyes,
Yeah. I was going to say no, but it's interesting because like there's so many options, and you just want that scientific breakthrough so that you can get to the state you want. Because like what Nathan's described and what you've described now today, Eric, about that experience, going from VR to AR, I just think about, like a game room. Like what if you're going to do an escape room place where at the front desk you get a pair of glasses, and as you walk through the doorway, you're going into VR, and now all that's separate, right? And even on the way in, you could have these experiences that are enriched. And same thing for like a cinema, right? You could forget the 3D glasses cinema. What about the cinema where like you've almost got like, I don't want to say 4D, but I don't know what you call it, but like an enhanced by VR cinema experience with others in a crowd, it could be really phenomenal.
So. Cool.
Yeah. Great. I think that's coming in a couple of years, honestly. I really do. I think there's the potential there to have that type of thing where you start out in the real world, you go into more augmentation, and then you jump into the virtual world and back out.
Yeah.
There is just a lot of hype around the AR scene in general, because we also have Niantic that has announced that it's opening up the Lightship AR development kit, which is a software development kit that the company uses to make, for example, Pokemon Go world-scale gameplay possible. It also announced a whopping $20 million fund to help kickstart AR development, and they're specifically aiming to create multiplayer AR experience for both Android and iOS mobile platforms. They're also, funnily, calling their ecosystem a metaverse as well. So it's just another one of those plays.
Although a metaverse with Pokemons is freaking awesome.
I'm not gonna lie. The Niantic version though is more connecting in the real world, and then using applications to augment your real world experiences.
Yeah, that's how they announced it as well. It's an augmented reality and world scale gameplay, but they are showing some really cool. I don't know if you have that video of that Giphy. Where they show like the overlay. It's one of them.
Don't worry, I have something to show for sure.
Where they overlay the clouds. they overlay the clouds, and you have the spaceship that flies, or the cloud ship that flies through.
Yeah,
I think that's a really cool thing that they're showing, because they're showing now that they can perceive depth as well, so that the spaceship can go behind the cloud scrapers and in front of the cloud scrapers, depending on like where it's located in that augmented space, which I think is a really cool illustration of what they're doing nowadays.
Yeah, the demo they showed at AWE was really interesting because they focused on 3 aspects of their platform. One was that spatial segmentation. It can recognize things like if it's natural grass on the ground versus if it's artificial ground. It can recognize if it's water. It can recognize if it's a beach. It can recognize the sky. It can recognize trees. It can recognize buildings. It's pretty powerful stuff. And one of the demos was actually gathering resources within that area. So you have to dig up the ground and then chop down trees and then grab things from the clouds to help build up that airship that you're describing. And then the second segment that they were talking through was around interconnectivity. They have it set up so that you can make very simplistic 5-player multiplayer games and then make them build more complex actions on top of it. The one that they showed was like a snowball fight. And then also the actual like depth mapping, spatial recognition. When I was playing one of the demos, you could actually throw the snowball and it would hit a wall or hit the trees that they had in the area, and it would actually stick to it, which was super impressive for something that's just running on a smartphone.
Yeah, I agree. Like these are the kind of experience that I would really like to see in AR glasses with, like the full field of view. I think those kind of things will blow people's minds.
You don't think I still think like doing this on a phone, I don't think is that bad for now. I still kind of feel like I'm immersed even if I look through a phone, because it's so fun. Like the snowball thing, I don't know, I haven't tried it, but if you're there with like 4 friends, you're so focused on the task that just your phone expands around you, even that the rest is just still like just a window,
Yeah. For me, the most compelling AR game that I've played is like almost like a giant, well, as large as you want to draw it, like chess battlefield with 2 sets, 3 versus 3 tanks. So you have these 3 tanks that spawn on both sides. The game's called Smash Tanks. I think it's available both on iOS and Android. But you basically, you can draw it out in your garden and be walking around the tank. It's got these like happy little anime characters driving the tanks. And what you do is you like on the phone, like what Nathan's saying, you can kind of feel like yourself get immersed as you're playing with somebody else, and then you play by passing the phone or even wirelessly networking 2 phones. And it works really cool because you're both looking at the same thing, and they're objects that you can walk around and interact with. And it doesn't have the kind of environmental engagement that you've just described, Eric, in these newer devices. This is back, maybe 2-3 years.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree. All right, then we have a bit of hardware news, which is unfortunately a bit more disappointing. It's a Decagear. It's a headset that many of us are rather excited about, and it has been unfortunately delayed. So they announced this news on their website with a statement that, at least to my ears, sounds a little bit worrying. I'll read a part of it. So they mentioned that the shortage in the consumer electronics markets affects badly small companies like us, and it is not going to be resolved in the near future. Semiconductors crave for big orders, while investors see too many risks for substantial investment. Even if we solve the financial issues and produce the headset as is, its current price is $700, more than double the cost of the Quest 2. We don't want to sell expensive hardware, as high prices cripple VR growth potential. Despite the issues in the market, Facebook continues to manufacture and sell the Quest 2 for the same price. They can do it forever because they write the subsidization as an investment, which will yield profit at a later stage through their ecosystem. This is a double-edged sword for the XR market, because while they're expediting usage with great products at low prices, they also get to monopolize the market. Even at $700, we don't have a sustainable business model, as once you guys get the Decagear headset, you will buy content on SteamVR and Valve. SteamVR and Valve are not splitting their store revenue with anyone. So what now? It is time to pivot and change to a direction that will allow us to build a future in VR toward an open ecosystem. We think that we managed to form a solution, and I will share more about it here during the next week. What do you guys think about that?
I honestly think they already knew this was going. Like, they already planned this from the start, because this is no surprise, right?
That back then because in the first episode we talked about it.
It's like almost saying, like, we now finally understand how the industry works, and now we suddenly have to change with the wave. I think this is just a smart way to kind of like first hype everyone up, and now kind of change a different direction and kind of point to, like, it's very like if you look at other companies who are also having a hard time making like, for example, Lynx also as well, like, they're not pointing towards Facebook. You know, they're not like, oh, look at them, it's no fair, blah, blah, blah. They just focus on what they have to do, and they're just going to try their best to deliver to everyone. So, I don't know. This kind of sounds like nonsense to me.
Yeah. To me, it's just, I do think they were over-optimistic rather than this being, you know, some kind of foreplanned thing. But when you're in that space and you see a niche or a market, and you're like, I think we can make this work. But then, in this case, supply chain is surprising a lot of people, because people felt like, oh, right, guess what? The COVID effect is like a year long. Oh, now it's 18 months. Oh, now, oh, God, it's going to be 3 years now. Having to revise plans and revise again and again has hit a lot of business cases and trashed more than it probably has saved. So I'm not surprised.
I completely agree with that, Tim. But the thing that bothers me the most about this statement is that the statement that he says is even at $700, we don't have a sustainable business model, because once you guys get the VR headset, then, you know, it's Steam VR that will make all the money and not us. But the COVID and us has nothing to do with that, right? This was already before COVID the case. This has always been, they've always had a bad business model then. That's basically what they're saying, right?
The other thing about Decagear is, before Decagear, their website, Mega Dodo something or other, also talked about a Deca as a MMO platform. So I think, you know, this is taking them back to the interconnected world thing, because they're talking about mobile OS versus cloud OS versus, I think they called something a brick OS.
The Deca brick.
Which is, thank you.
Deca brick. The Deca brick. It's coming. They're all. I don't really find a lot of information about that specifically, but it's indeed their operating system, and they have it aimed for, I think, the second quarter of 2023 to release it, and then they say in the third quarter of 2023 the Deca brick will be sold and shipped by other device makers. So they're aiming for other device makers to start using that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it all sounds very tricky, and like, I've been skeptical from the very start. Although I do want, as I said, like people to succeed. But I don't know. This all sounds very strange.
What do you take from this? Like, what I took from this was, okay, we can no longer make the device we wanted to for the money we were going to. So let's get off the ship. But you nice contributors paid for this, so we're still going to make the headset for you, ship that, and then we're going to basically let these blueprints go to other people who want to manufacture. But I think they know, and we know, that's really not realistic. I mean, think about the old Steam hardware, where it's like, oh, you guys make it. You get the blueprints are open, they're shared. You can go ahead and make Steam PCs.
The question is, do they really want to share, and what way they want to share?
No. So Zim is spot on it, because their new deadline reads like this. So the second quarter of 2022, they'll have a blogger edition that will go out to bloggers. On the quarter fourth of 2022, they have a limited edition of Decagear that is produced and shipped by themselves. And then the fourth quarter of 2022 as well, they'll have the Decagear sold and shipped by other device makers.
Yeah.
So they're actually already in their timeline. They're planning to give these blueprints indeed to other device makers to make their device and sell it under their.
But what I don't get is, it feels to me like they met in the boardroom or whatever. They decided, okay, company's going to make a big change, right? But we want to give them a soft letdown. And that's the kind of press release you do for a soft letdown, or an attempted soft letdown. I kind of would as a consumer, like what feels worse? Them saying, oh, we got to back down now, the Kickstarter failed, we're not going to be able to do this device anymore, or this kind of planned tail to kind of tail it back. It's weird, right? Because like you don't see a clear vision for their future. I really like the device that I've got in hand from Deca, which is the Deca Move. The Deca Move is a hip tracker for those who don't know what it is, and honestly, I don't play Skyrim without it. It is absolutely something that I do, and I honestly feel like for a limited number of use cases, the device is absolutely fantastic. Like I use it for nothing else.
I agree. I
agree
completely with you, because I think the technology that they're describing in their headset is technology that is possible to do right now, and is something that is probably appreciated by a lot of users. But the problem is indeed, again, the production and bringing it to the market at a cost that is, feasible for a business to survive and to thrive on. And that is in the current market so hard with a player like, for example, Facebook.
Yeah, and they're not big. This is why I think if I was their product team, I would double down on things on the tech like Deca Move. Because it sells, and it's coupling, and it's got instant value. And the second you try it, start there. Get a sure footing in the market. Build a name for yourself.
Well, that's what they are.
Don't be Pimax.
That's what they already tried.
Don't be a dreamer.
That's why they sent that thing out, because they wanted to start with accessories and kind of build up trust.
Sure.
And show like we're not selling crap. Because the thing that they got works really well. It's great for playing games, but making a headset is a total different story.
But that's why,
I will say though, Deca Move was present in several booths at AWE. Like people are using it regularly. I use it for games like Skyrim too, and No Man's Sky, and a couple of other games, because it just makes it feel more natural to just turn around, and it's seamless. But the Decagear always felt like it was kind of far away, and the $450 price point at the time that they announced it was a little hard to attain. They came out with a bill of materials to say like, hey, we can really do this for this price. But I don't think they realized small scale manufacturing versus large scale manufacturing. If you were making 700,000 or more of them, maybe yes, you can get it at that price point. But when you're talking about 10,000, I think is what they referred to in the email, potential users, like you can't get those components even pre-COVID at that price point.
Good point. That's a very good point. Maybe they should take the F.Reality, advice and make the Deca metaverse, right?
Well, I think the good thing they did is that they didn't let people pay a full price like Pimax did at the start. You had to pay like $1. Was it like $1?
I think it was $10 for theirs.
Or $10. Well, like a small, like almost like a pre-order amount, and that's not enough to, of course, Pimax, they already had the money, and then they could do whatever they wanted. Well,
But that whatever you get on pre-orders won't solve the problem of your return on investment. Yeah. Like every time you sell a unit, you need to be making money, and unless you're sitting on a cash warehouse, and they aren't, and so I don't know. Like I kind of wonder what would that headset cost? Like a $700 headset of what they originally designed still doesn't sound bad. It sounds like they would have a market for it. So I wonder if there's something more that they're not saying in their press release that is driving this decision. Something else that's more pressing. In other words, I can't pay my staff, or the scale of operations over the next 18 months can't be upheld. Then we have to scale back now. Like that's the sense I'm getting. It's not just the price.
Has anyone actually tried anything other than the Deca Move?
No.
Nope.
I did tell him, so like, if you have something, then I'm happy to fly there and show it to me. Because if there's something, like I am not getting hyped about you announcing anything or these announcements. I want to get to try it, and then we'll see. But the thing is, like when I did a check on their background, and also the history behind this founder and the company, I just have a funny feeling about this, But as you said, if it's just $10 that you laid down for this, small risk, But everything to me, like kind of points towards like alarm bells. I don't know, But as I said, I want people to succeed. I want companies like this
to
succeed. But
I mean, they announced that they would next week give more information on like what the timeline is and what the plan is. So at least they're communicative. So I think that is already a great thing.
Yeah.
They
agree.
They come out with this advance in time. So I think that's a great thing.
And as I said, they're not doing the shaft my user base and the people who wanted to back me move, which they could have done. I actually think in 2021 that seems to be the standard. Like shaft the people who backed me, and they're not doing that. So although I talked a little bit against the soft letdown, it feels like, it feels kind of like the right thing to do to the community who's backing you. And if they do have to back out, they're backing out gently. They're not just dropping the ball and letting responsibility slide, which means the next time they want to develop something and put their name out there, like that history will follow through with you, and I will still remember that. You know?
And so far the approach they have done is very careful, very smart, especially with like the Deca move, where you're like, wow, this is a great product.
Yeah,
we're heading towards something, and like Pimax is the best example of this, where like it bites them back now. Like they announced like the Pimax 12K or 18K but people have kind of seen it now, and they kind of know how things work. So you have to. Reputation is everything in the VR scene. Everything.
I agree. Anyway, I'm going to finish off the most recent news with a little bit of a positive note. So a little bit of VR gaming news before like Zim goes into his releases later on. And this one is Deep Rock Galactic, which is a personal favorite of mine. When it comes to co-op multiplayer, that's launched a major update to their game, including new missions, new enemies, cosmetics, and they have enabled Steam VR and Oculus VR plugins to allow modders now to play with them. So a quick word of caution, the game is not yet fully playable in VR or actually playable in VR. But hopefully modders can start using those plugins to eventually start making the game actually playable in VR. We're still a long way off, but if there's one thing that I've learned, during my time in VR is that, you should never underestimate like the VR modding scene. Does any one of you ever play Deep Rock Galactic?
No, it's a 4-player co-op, right? Looks pretty cool.
It's good.
It's very good. It's very nice.
It's procedural, is it? Or
yes,
in a way, yeah. You have like you have like missions that are being generated on the fly, and you have like, I don't know, there's like a variety of missions that you have. So they do we come back after a certain time, but they're always in different environments. So the environments are indeed every time different. And you have different roles that you have. You have a scout, you have someone who drills, you have an engineer, and they all have their specific functions. And it's actually the best way to play this game is indeed with 4 players rather than with 2 or by yourself. It's a great game because I play it quite regularly with a couple of friends.
It kind of like the look and feel of it. It really reminds me of that Cave Digger 2. Cave Digger 2. It looks a lot like Cave Digger 2 because Cave Digger 2 has it's less. I actually don't know if Cave Digger 2 is procedural. I think it is. So it's very similar kind of tech, but this 4-player concept is pretty neat. So what are you doing? You're gathering minerals and sending them off, and you're fighting off bad guys, basically?
So you work for a mining company, just like with Cave Digger as well, and you need to not only gather resources, so you have different kind of missions. Sometimes you need to retrieve technology, or you need to find eggs of a certain creature, or you need to, fix a mining operation, and those are the kind of missions that you get. And then you need to find the location where you need to go to. You need to do the mission, and in the meantime, you need to try and gather as much resources as you can. And when you get back to your spaceship or it's like a probe that goes into the asteroid, because it's in space as well. Like it's not on a planet. Then you can use those kind of resources to buy new weapons or upgrades and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a very interesting, a very time-consuming game. Yeah.
And I think the modder community has already started to embrace it. I know that's why they added those tools in, was because some people approached them and said, hey, we'd really like to add a VR mode to your game if you're not going to do it yourselves. And
that's exactly what triggered it. Yeah. There was a user that actually was specifically asking for this, and they were like, okay, we'll just activate the at least the possibility to do so. Right. And the modder community actually have already been working on trying to get like certain features working in virtual reality. So
Yeah. And there's been some really impressive flat PC games that they've added mod support for. Risk of Rain 2 is the one that sticks with me still, because it's almost a completely different game in VR, but you can still play with both VR and flat players.
That's one of those advantages that you often don't get from a baked for VR game. Is if you have mates who are like not into VR, getting them into a game. I know Mike has talked about this on previous podcasts as well, but like getting them into VR is sometimes difficult. So if you are able to share an experience where you're in VR and they're not, great. But you don't usually have that. Normally the way it works is company builds a game for VR, and like a year and a half to 2 years later, they're like, we actually want to also dip into the marketplace. So they'll do a flat port essentially, or open that door. But that comes sometime later. Yeah. Looks cool, actually, guys. I'm keen to maybe play this. Yeah.
It was recently actually on a discount as well. So, but yeah, you missed that. Sorry, Tim.
Oh, damn.
Anyway.
Black Friday's around the corner. Surely there's going to be some Steam sales around that.
Yeah. Before we head over to Eric and talk a little bit more about AWE, it's time to thank another one of our sponsors. This time it's Walkabout Mini Golf from the team at Mighty Coconut. It's a team favorite. I think it's fair to say that, and it's widely regarded as one of the best mini golf VR games available on headsets. If mini golf is not your thing, or if you're just playing bad at it, like Nathy, it's also a great social experience to bring in your friends or family. So the game includes 8 different courses, including the latest one that is called Coyote Valley. I hope I pronounced that right, because I have no idea.
Almost.
Coyote.
It's fine.
Sounds great.
Everyone butchers it, so it's good.
Each hole on the course also has a hidden ball, allowing you to go on a little Easter egg hunt to collect some of those collectibles. Definitely go and check it out. It's available on Quest and PCVR headsets through Oculus and Steam, and a link to the Quest version you can find in the description down below.
Okay. Well, you're the worst in this one, just saying. Spoilers.
Me?
Yeah, you. Like you're roasting me while you're the one that is actually you're just flying around in this game, not even playing golf.
Yeah, exactly. I don't need to do any effort. Anyway, for our main topic this week.
Okay, sure.
We're going to go into a little bit of a conversation with Eric and all of the cool stuff that you got to try out on AWE. But maybe first, tell us a little bit about yourself, because for many people in the VR industry and the community, you are a very familiar face. But for others, you're probably a little bit more working in the background. We know each other already since the time that I think my only experience with VR was like a VR cardboard version. That's kind of when we first got acquainted. Homido, except wow, you still know the name even. But yeah, you've always worked a little bit more behind the scenes. So how did you get involved in VR, and how did you develop this passion for it?
So it actually started. I played a location-based game by Niantic called Ingress. And when playing that game, Google had their I.O. conference, and at the I.O. conference, there were portals you could go to for Ingress that were limited edition. I was like, oh, I need to go get those. So I walked over, and someone actually in line for the after party for Google I.O. had their cardboard. Because they had just given them out earlier in the day, and they brought it over, and they're like, do you want to try this? And I was like, okay. Very skeptical, but okay. And I was kind of blown away by it. And so I started with cardboard, same as Rowdy, sort of.
The Daydream platform, that was where you were very invested in the beginning, right?
Yeah, definitely. And then I went from cardboard to Gear VR a little bit. And then there was an IGN contest, very random, to go to Seattle to hang out with Valve and 12 different dev teams. And one of the prizes was a Vive Pre before anyone else could get a Vive.
Wow.
And so I entered about 7,000 times with a bunch of different pitches as to why I should go. and ended up going up to Seattle. There were, I think, 19 of us that actually attended. Sadly, it's Bradley, who I know the channel knows, and hopefully people in chat know as well, was one of the other attendees at that event
Tribal
as well.
Instincts.
Yeah,
Tribal Instincts. That's an old one.
Yeah, I think Gold Vision was another one that had a channel for a while. And it was super impressive to go up there and I met all of the early developers essentially for the Vive, and everyone that was working on things that had hand controllers and room scale, and it was amazing. It was really groundbreaking. Prior to that, the reason I was so motivated to do the IGN contest, there was like a truck that went around, like a semi truck that you could go on and try the Vive.
Oh wow!
So I tried the blue tilt brush and aperture robot repair from the lab.
Yeah. Yep.
And I can't see 3D like on a 3D screen normally. And I'd never really tried on an HMD, but when I started using tilt brush, I could see that depth and just like opened an entirely different world for me. So that's really what like drove me to start experimenting in VR.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And from there on, you went to pretty much every VR conference and AR conference. You can't go to a VR conference without running into Eric.
At least stateside. I know. Like VR Days Europe, I think just started something today. I believe.
Yeah, you're right. But most events happen in the US for sure. The big ones.
Yeah, for sure. So about go ahead. You want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so about AWE, like we asked you to pick like a couple of highlights and like walk us through them. So what were your highlights for the conference that you really want to bring up here?
The first thing I want to talk about is probably never coming to consumers, to be perfectly honest. But it's called the Olfactory VR or OVR Technology Inhale.
Yeah, I think Zim has a lot of experience with that.
I know.
Zim has experience with the prototype, I believe, the South Park Nodulus Rift, which I also had the opportunity to have the pleasant smell lingering in my nose for felt like days, but it was only hours. This is a lot different than that. Fortunately, it doesn't try to kill you and make you painful in the nose. It actually releases different scents through a small module that fits at the bottom of a headset where your nose is, so it makes sense. And there were similar products that they tried to launch called there was one called Feel Real, if I remember correctly. Which is like yes, exactly, with different scent packs for different games and that nature. That one got shut down because of the technology that they were using was similar to vaping pens. The Olfactory VR doesn't do that. It's a very clean water-based solution. They have 9 different scents, and they also do have scent packs. They have one that's nature-based. They also have one that's trauma-based.
Oh my god!
And that one kind of fascinated me.
The smell of blood and iron, like.
So it's really used toward, it's geared toward things like treating PTSD, because I don't know if you want this, but it helps to immerse people back into that environment to really cope with it. So it might be a smell like burning gasoline or gunpowder or blood, as Rowdy mentioned. Like it's extreme, and they said you didn't want to be there to QA that scent pack because you're probably getting traumatized from it. But it was very interesting. The demo that I tried had 4 very simplistic scenes. The first one, there's a flower box in front of you, and you pick up a rose from the flower box, and as you even start to go near the flower box, it's like you're walking past a rose bush. Like you smell that scent in front of you, but when you bring it closer, it becomes more and more intense. And of course, when you sniff it, it's the overpowering scent of a rose. But they go even deeper. If you go down the rose and smell the stem of the rose, it smells like the stem of the rose. If you go further down the rose, the bulb at the bottom with the dirt and the root smells like the earthy ground. And the next scene was a campfire with, the stick with the marshmallow on it. You could smell the marshmallow. You could smell the fire burning, the wood chips going up into the air. And then if you roast the marshmallow, you get that completely different consistency, that kind of smoky smell on the marshmallow as well. Unfortunately, no taste. You can't pick up the marshmallow and eat it afterward. That's their other module coming later.
Anyway, you joke, but we saw that in Japan, right? Remember the candy that would feed you? It had an articulated arm that would put candy in your mouth when some little Japanese girl would be like feeding her sugar daddy some sugar. Yeah, I remember that.
So about that technology, like how do they get the different kind of combination of smells? Like, is every scent a specific kind of module, or do they combine different modules to get specific scents? Because there's so many different kinds of.
I believe it's 4 or 5 scents in a module. But I don't know exactly how. Like, they didn't elaborate. It is all proprietary, first of all, at this point. Like, you can't build this for yourself. It's fairly expensive. I don't know if I'm actually supposed to say the price, but it is not something that's intended for consumers. It's an annual subscription. They describe it as the Dollar Shave Club for men of scents, essentially, where they'll just keep sending you more replacement scent modules. So the scent modules last about 1 to 2 months, they said, depending on how much you use them. And if you don't stop your subscription, then they just keep sending you more and more.
Oh my god! Did the scent modules expire? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't know that. They didn't mention that. The other thing is, in order to integrate with your software, so if you're using it for like your game as an example, and you want Skyrim, for example, you want to smell the fire coming from the dragon, and you want to smell the water, you want to smell the cooking rabbit and all of that. There's no Skyrim pack. Just sorry, Zim.
Yeah,
I know.
But I assume
there was a lot of build up for just letting me down there, Eric. You know, he's not coming back. He's off the show.
I assume that the way that these packs work is that, for example, you have the flower pack that has then the different modules for the flower. So like to have that in, like, for example, Skyrim, you would have to have all of those packs coming together, right? You would have to have the fire pack because fire has different kind of smell. And that's kind of like what I always find confusing with these kind of things, because I know from like a neuroscience perspective, science smell is so complex. There's so many different kind of smells, and the way that they interact together is so complex that it's hard to, like, it's not like a color panel that you can like start mixing colors together and you get like a new smell. That's kind of not how it works. So you indeed would have to, for example, when you said about like the flower, the rose itself smells different from like the roots. All of those have to be separate kind of modules that give you that kind of scent, which I think for a game is, I wouldn't say impossible, but like we'd have to have a very minimal kind of game in order to for example, the Resident Evil 7 candle, where it gives you like the kind of smell of like a rotting house, that you can do. But so intricate kind of smells of like specific kind of things is going to be hard, I think.
The thing they can still consider is like a wireless thing that you just put on the table and you're standing right next to it. You know, like it's not instantly going into your nose, but it kind of sprays from a few directions, and then you smell it too. That would be kind of because then you would be able to put more into it and make it more. But yeah, for games and smell, like that's next level.
It would be perfect for like meditation kind of apps. Like now you're at the beach, this is how the salty sea smells, or now you're in a flower field or in a grass field or in a forest, and have those like overall environments. I would say that's probably possible and probably applicable as well.
And you just described the exact scenes that they took us through. There was like a waterfall, a beach, the campfire. Like it was all very simplistic, not a lot of things that can evoke scent scenes. But you're absolutely you're nailing it. There's not really a way to do very complex things. That's why I said there's not going to be a Skyrim pack, at least with this particular technology. That's not to say that they can't continue to develop something like that in the future. Yeah, but I agree with you. I don't think it's mixing the scents. I think it's just putting specific scents in the cartridge.
So this having an application, like, if this is for a business as a party trick, essentially, to say, hey, we're in you're an advertising firm, you're an architecture company,
Maybe.
and you're like, you bring someone in and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go take you to this forested park and we're gonna show you this fantastic house that you're gonna sign a contract for several million for us to build. And by the way, you're getting this kick of like, oaky forest land or whatever. Like, yeah, and that does the deal, right? You know, that's the only place where I can see this really having a market.
Also,
who else is using this? I just am confused.
I think there are a lot of markets for it. Like, you know, when I spoke about the Efteling, where they had like this ride for people who were, that couldn't ride the ride itself, but there was like a virtual reality version of it. Yeah. So all those smells that you usually have in that ride were translated to the VR version. But that was like a big like machine that just kind of sprayed it like into your face because you were seated. But I do think so. And also, like, for example, like a car dealer. Like, there's a certain car that isn't out yet, and they show you driving through the forest, and they put like a little wind machine on it too. I really think it does sell the experience or the because memories are also built with sense and stuff. Yeah. But it is interesting
smell
to
is
hear.
One of the most important parts of
but I feel like I'm so intrigued by this whole thing because I feel like this is the first time someone actually gives some insights, because we're always laughing about this stuff. But I feel like this is the first time I actually hear some legit stuff, like, you know, a subscription, like having different like modules, having like demos and stuff. And there's like something, like, I felt like we couldn't take it serious because there was no real business model or actually someone selling it. But this sounds quite legit to me.
That's a fair point. I'm just going to say, I would not pay a subscription model to have Eric Hartman do what he did to my nose. Okay, I'm just saying that.
I would not either. I agree. I think though that just one final point on their model, the one place that they were really focusing on is like psychology. So they had a couple of scenes that were like guided meditations where they have scents that were not familiar scents that you could kind of use as a calming scent, similar to burning incense or something of that nature. And again, the post-trauma thing kind of fascinated me as well. I would not want to be immersed in something like that, but I've never experienced that. So maybe it is really a good treatment. I'm not sure.
That makes total sense. I actually think that as medical treatment, rehab, essentially, for rehabilitating people, I think that's fantastic. We already know that VR has such an impact. Coupling this with it, also clinics and things like that would pay the money, you know, and have a reason to have these cartridges showing up once a month or once every 2 months. Only thing that I was going to say there is the dreamer in me. For us, for the rest of us who are gamers, like, I want taste and smell. I do want that, but I have a feeling that we're going to need to have some kind of minor brain up, maybe like what Musk has been pushing. You know, you just get a little slice behind the ear, and then you can smell all the games.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because that was the next topic I was going to go into.
Well, here you go.
So brain-computer interfaces, there was a great panel by one of the founders of OpenBCI about Project Galea, which, again, if you follow Sadly It's Bradley, you've probably learned more than I learned in the presentation, because he is very into that kind of stuff. But they have two different types of brain-computer interface that they're working on. One that pushes active brain-computer interface, which they showed a couple of very quick demos. One was training a mechanical arm and a mechanical leg to just use micro gestures and brainwave activity to open and close the hand and move the arm up and down and kick and things of that nature. And the other was a very simple application of driving a cart, like a Mario Kart style game. But they said, you know, this could be translated to actually being able to physically drive a motor vehicle for people that don't have use of their arms. And it was just really fascinating to see that level of interface. And it's mostly EEG based. I know Rowdy can explain all of this way better than I can. But it was very cool to see that. What the Galea interface, though, is mostly passive brain-computer interface. So it's more of getting the position in the right place so that you can use brainwave activity, and it will recognize spikes in certain areas and things of that nature. So like your
nothing
gaze
intravenous, nothing. Nothing subdermal.
Exactly. And the one thing that people said is, well, can I just put this on my head and every time it does things the same way? And the answer was no, because unless your hair is exactly the same length, you put the electrodes or whatever the actual devices end up becoming by the time it comes out on your head in exactly the same places, it's going to be different. It's going to need to be recalibrated every time. They have been testing with about a dozen researchers within their team. They do have a partnership with Valve, but they're trying to make this very headset agnostic, so that you'll be able to take their device and map it to AR devices, VR devices, even kind of standalone on its own. It's exciting, but they also detailed out risks, because there are specific companies that really would love to have all of your data. I think I might have sent you a slide with I don't know if you can pull that one up, but that shows the different companies that were surveyed that has it, and people will recognize some of those companies. But the concern is really around keeping your data yours, and protecting your life from being invaded by others. What was very interesting, though, is that they did a survey of they have about 1,000 people that have signed up to do a beta of this sometime after it releases. And of the beta users, they did a survey as part of the beta application. And there were more people concerned about data privacy than mind control. Mind control was like number 3 of 6 of I would be a little bit more concerned if a company took control of my mind than if they have my credit card number, really.
But at the same time, I think mind control is so far off that I think it's more realistic, of course, because when you're registering brainwaves, one of the things that you can do as well is figure out if someone has a brain trauma. Those are things that you can actually see, like how far is he in his recovery, because specific brain waves, the peaks come back later, and there's a lot of information that is kind of in there that I don't know if you want, for example, a company that might sell that data to an insurance agency or something like that. And I think there's serious ethical concerns with reading that kind of data, because it's health data.
I'm going to go ahead and summarize this because I've managed to get it up. Not in the cleanest of formats, but hey, it's on the screen. Okay. So yeah, it shows, but what really matters is who has access to your biometric data. And I just read from the bottom and we'll go up. So at the very bottom, we've got doctor, I think is what that says.
Is it a pharmacy?
Doctor, then, so doctor says extremely concerned, 10%. Somewhat concerned in the blue is probably about 40% of the graph, and not concerned is about half. Now I'll ratchet right the way through. So it goes from, for the extremely concerned proportion, the next one is insurance, to 22%, government, 33%. So this is about people being worried about a doctor having access, then about insurance company having access, then the government, 33%, Amazon, 35%, Microsoft, 36%, Apple, 37%, Google, 40%, of course. And of course, Facebook, 50%. The whopping
they haven't had the opportunity to change that graphic to Meta.
Yeah, well, different company there now. But
I'm surprised that the government is still quite
low.
Low.
Yeah.
Well, you've mentioned before, Nathi, that in the Netherlands, people are quite like, I almost feel like it's like government does witchcraft or something like that. Like there's some concern there. But aside from definitely giving the finger every so often, American and UK audiences, I kind of feel like it probably sits in the right place. Like I would be more concerned with those top 5 than probably the government necessarily.
It's true. And also tech companies nowadays seem to have more power than the government.
That's exactly why I say, because they have global reach, they have global data, whereas the government's span of control is very personal to you. They can affect, what you pay in taxes, whether or not they give you a hard time. They can't affect your life in a more direct way than the global companies, but I don't know.
Yeah. Although, like if you look at the graph, like those, like Apple and everyone else, still falls under the government.
Yeah.
So
I'm curious I'm curious about the insurance one being 22%. Like, would you guys be concerned that you'd have to pay more for your car or something? I'm just not really like biometric data being used against you on that. Would it be medical? That must be.
Yeah, that's probably mostly insurance. Medical, because they could potentially use something that they gather from that data as a pre-existing condition to either raise your rates or deny you services.
Exactly.
So that's
or even worse. Not even if it's you, but if they for example find something. For example, with DNA, that is a big issue as well. Where they, for example, could figure out that one of your family members has some kind of genetic condition that it is found because of their genetic code, and they could use that as a condition to deny you coverage or to increase your coverage. So I think that is a very big concern for me. To have those kind of companies get involved.
Yeah, definitely interesting.
What else, Eric?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'll do one more VR thing, couple of AR things very quickly. I got to try the Varjo Aero, which is a beautiful, beautiful. I think Nathan would call it a pleasure for the eyes, and I would agree. It's amazing. It doesn't really do things differently than other headsets outside of the visual. But the visual is very stunning. Being able to have the clarity on... I played Microsoft Flight Simulator, seeing all the gauges, seeing everything. It felt very, very natural, as opposed to when I'm playing in one of my current devices, you've got that kind of... You've got the screen from the SE. You've got the kind of garbled resolution. This is very, very good clarity. Can't really say much else about it other than it's got very good clarity and it works with Steam VR. It is $1,900 and something alone without any tracking. So there's no tracking, just the headset for that price. They have an awesome software suite also. I don't know if any of you have tried their software suite, but their virtual desktop that you can map into a VR environment, not to be confused with virtual desktop, which I use every day, but you can pull in the windows to your VR experiences. I think would be great for content creators because you can pull in chat and pull in specific windows and things of that nature to whatever VR thing that you're doing as an overlay in a manner that seems to be a lot smoother than what you get with like a Steam VR overlay or things of that nature. It was very clean and very kind of like pro as opposed to what you get out of a box.
So what I'm interested in is because like most companies who make headsets are or from China or from the US. This is a company that is from Scandinavia, from, was it Norway? I think it was Norway, right? Norwegian? I think they were. Is Varjo from Varjo Norwegian? I think they are.
I think it was Nordics. I think you were right, but I don't remember which country.
Yeah, but like compared to the rest that you tried, like how does it, like the presentation, the way they kind of did their stuff, did it feel different compared to, or
I would say they were a lot more. So they were knowledgeable about their product. Everyone in that booth you could talk to, and they could give you the same amount of knowledge. Where a lot of the other companies, if you go to a booth attendant, they're just like, yeah, you can put it on your head. Isn't it cool? Like every one of them could give you the details.
I see.
They were very passionate and really excited to have people, but you get that with Chinese headsets and other headsets as well. So that's not really different. And their presentation was very well organized. They had different stations for each headset. They knew right off the bat when you were going to the booth to ask you which of these features is most important to you. Mm-hmm. And they seem to really be, again, it's more of a business-focused company currently. I don't think a standard consumer is going to buy a Varjo headset right now, and that's okay. But what they're doing is very good for people like car manufacturers, industry, things of that nature. But their booth was very well organized in that you knew what you were getting into with each of their 3 headsets that they had on exhibit. before you were anywhere near the booth.
Yeah.
And that was important because sometimes the wait could be hours unless you made an appointment. So it was a big deal to know what you were getting before you go into that experience. You don't get a lot with the Chinese and other.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like compared to other companies this year, they were they have been very clear about like what are we selling, what are we making, what can you experience. So it's like, as you said, before you try it, you know what it's like. I think like, the headset is great, but the way this company treats customers and consumers and business is just very nice.
Yeah.
So I have a question that came in chat, and I'm honestly not sure, and that's why I'm going to ask this question back. It says, I wonder if Eric will talk about the activity level around the big Meta section, especially compared to, say, Varjo. I want to mention Meta did not exhibit at Augmented World Expo, at least not the Meta that you're probably thinking of. Meta Materials was there, also Meta.
Also another Meta company.
But
it's crazy.
And also a company called Campfire, which has a headset coming out that is very similar to the old Meta and Meta 2 headsets that do not exist anymore.
What the heck? It's so confusing. It's so confusing with all these Meta companies.
So is your question around how Varjo presents their booth versus like Meta at an exhibition, or is it something related to the hardware itself?
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'll run a little bit about the Campfire headset that you mentioned, because it's a 3D head for AR. It looks like it's a whopper.
I actually have a Meta 2 headset, and it's really the same form factor. This is one of those headsets I was describing earlier where, like, to get a bigger field of view, you get a monster of a headset, and that's exactly what this is. They have, I think it's either 92 or 95 degree field of view. It's really, they're focusing on many people having either these devices or other devices in a setting. So there's like this little X that you put on the table, and that's your 3D monitor. And then you can bring in other monitors. So somebody can be looking on a PC, somebody can be using an iPad, somebody can be using a mobile device or another AR device. But you're looking at it and seeing the position from your angle. They're looking at it from wherever they're positioned around this X. And it's really currently only designed for, designed for designers, for people that are building prototypes, for people that are doing some type of either industrial or creative design. It's not a public facing product yet. They're really just, people are reaching out to them that they think are a good fit, they'll approve and get into their program. But it was good to see that device in the market, because the Meta 2 does something differently than the HoloLens and everything that's come after, in that it has that wider field of view. And it also, I don't know if the Campfire has this, but the Meta had very good hand interactions as well. I did not. The Campfire has this pack that goes on the back of your mobile device. And then you use the mobile device, and it kind of gives it some 6th off, but not entirely 6th off. Like, you can do the laser pointer stuff, and it's much better than like a Daydream controller or a Gear VR controller. But I'm not sure if it's true 6th off, or if it's just like a specific sophisticated IMU in this little package.
Weird. You really get to taste all of Baskin-Robbins flavors, don't you, at these conventions? You get to see everything that goes under the carpet or doesn't make mainstream. Well,
that's what I'm saying, because VR. this is definitely not mainstream. Like the last thing we're talking about now is like I'm sure I've seen this somewhere, but because you never hear about it, you're like, okay, yeah, click next. But it does sound interesting. Is this like the things like what you said before? It's like you have to try these obscure headsets or glasses, and then you're like, wow, but this is amazing. Like these are the use case. This is what you can do with it. And that's the great part about going to conventions, because you can just go to the dusty corners and be like, hey, I want to try this, and people are like, oh yeah, this is cool, you know.
The interesting thing is, like, all of these products, I could see different use cases. They're not. You don't buy the one size fits all product out of any of these products that I got to try. One that was kind of more one size fits all was the Vive Focus 3. And they made some pretty big announcements around AWE. I don't know if it was actually at AWE, where they've now extended play spaces to be very, very large. They said theoretically it can be as large as 1,000 square meters. That's not 100 either. I even clarified, do you mean 100? They said no, 1,000 square meters. And in large, like warehouse scale spaces and smaller, you can also map out one. I don't know what they call it, if they call it chaperone or guardian, or if they have their own term. But you can make one map of that room, and you can make it in whatever shape you want to, and then you can deploy that to many headsets through a piece of software. So it's similar to like in IT, if you're deploying antivirus to all of your clients' PCs, you can push a button and you can deploy that map to all of those devices.
They're gearing towards like arcades mostly, I think.
Exactly. Yes, definitely more targeted toward LBE or well, the device itself, I think, is still considered enterprise. But it's a very intelligent thing to do, and I'm not sure why it hasn't happened before.
Yeah, I'm
have that
surprised.
Shared map, because especially when we were setting up Space Pirate Arena, every time I played in a shared co-location experience, it was so hard to get it even close to mapped with that other player, because you have to do it independent on each device. And this way to just deploy across multiple, I think, is going to be a godsend for especially LBE. Location-based experiences are going to be exhibited at, I think it's called the IAAPA next week, which is a amusement park and arcade conference. I believe it's in Florida, if I remember correctly. And there's one that's going to be exhibited for sure there that was designed as part of the kind of like closed beta of this new program that they launched this week.
Yeah, and you were telling me earlier that you got a chance to play with the Flow as well from Vive. I mean, how did that compare?
To the Focus or in general?
Yeah, I'm just curious, headset to headset, and so, because it's its own product really. So
yeah, it's really independent from everything else that they've done so far. It really does kind of harken back to the days of the Go and prior. But I really like the fact that they've got the diopter adjustment so that for most users you can take your glasses off, and it's a very small form factor. So it's unique in that you could probably, I can't say everyone because everyone's head is a different shape still, even with this device, but most users will probably be able to go like this, put it on their face, and then use it for hours at a time. One of the things that they focused on is they wanted something that would be comfortable when you're lying down. I know you and I have had conversations about like VR experiences while lying down and how certain straps and certain things make it impossible to do that. Yep. And the way that they have kind of the open back with the Vive Flow makes that very practical. So they're thinking about people that are aged or in even assisted living places and things of that nature with this device, as well as like guided meditation, kind of chill out experiences as opposed to active experiences. I know I was talking to one of their representatives and they said one of the first demos they did, somebody was like, well, where's the gun game? And they were kind of missing the point of this particular device. But the way that they rolled it out, to be fair, was very confusing.
Yeah.
It wasn't, it didn't really say what our market is. I think one of the things that they talked about was ASMR, VR ASMR. Like that's not something you can care or grasp about. So it was very, I liked it a lot. I was actually really impressed with it. I'm probably going to either pre-order one or talk to them about like getting more demo time with one because I only had a limited time with it. It uses your phone as a controller. In fact, they even call it a PAC, like that's their internal term for it, in a way that is slightly different than like if you use it with an AR device or a Gear VR style thing. They actually have it so that you're using two fingers on the device at a time in a lot of their controls, and you can do different gestures and things of that nature using the phone screen. So it's a bit better than the controller some of you may have used, like the Vive Focus that they had that had kind of the almost Daydream style controller.
Yeah, not good.
It's more refined actually on the phone screen, which surprised me because I thought phone screen having different places on the screen and things of that nature would make it harder. They really mapped it more toward how many fingers and where the finger is rather than a specific placement on the screen, and that worked pretty well.
It's not like, it's nice to hear, like, because maybe it's also because we're in a certain bubble. It's like I don't hear that many people who tried this, who bought one, or like you can't buy one right now. You still have to pre-order it, right?
Yeah, they have actually started shipping the first batch shipped out. People started receiving them this week.
Okay.
So there are a handful, I would say, out. I don't know how many they sent in the first batch, but there are some people that have just started receiving them from that first pre-order. Yeah. I will say the pre-order initially came with like a little carrying case. I don't know that I would ever actually need the carrying case because this is a pretty small device. One of the guys had it in his suit coat pocket and just kept pulling it out. Like it's really compact. So I don't know if I'd use that. It looked kind of almost like a thermos, the case that they were.
It does kind of look like a.
That no longer ships with it. If you pre-order, that's a separate accessory. I think it's $59. Also, I don't know if I mentioned price of the Vive Flow is $499. I think we talked about it when we talked about the Lynx.
Yep.
So it is more expensive by far than something like an Oculus Go, for still kind of the $3 experiences. But the headset itself is $6. You can walk around in experiences. They are adding hand tracking. They were not very specific as to what type of hand tracking. It has black and white pass-through, similar to other Vive products they have today. I think there will probably one day be either a successor device or something iterative from that has color pass-through, that has better hand tracking, and in that form factor that will be a device that really wows people. This felt kind of like a step back, 2 steps forward. I don't want to say 2 steps back because it actually, for a particular market, is going to be really good. Whether that be an education sector, a wellness sector, or their focus on the aged people who need that distraction.
I want them to get good with it because I would love to have like an ayahuasca or a sound space done in that form factor. It would sell me on the device.
I think there are a lot of people who want to buy this and would want to pay this amount of money, but they completely downplay their own device by not having the right sales pitch to consumers nor businesses. And that's I think that's the problem of this headset, but also the Focus 3, the Pro, all those headsets that they make, and it kind of bites them in their own butt in that sense. For sure. And that's a shame because I like what you're saying here. I'm getting interested again in the Vive Flow. Well, first I was like first you need to like tell me why I should try this, why I should experience this.
And this is totally off. I was going to say this is totally off topic, but Eric made an amazing pre-podcast comment that I have to share with the world, which is that Nathan's shirt reminds him of the PlayStation VR tracking camera. And I can't unsee that. And now I have given that gift unto you. There you go.
Was there anything else on the conference that you really want to highlight?
I just want to speak to a panel that I unfortunately did not get the opportunity to attend. There was a gentleman, actually the founder of the creator of the HoloLens, who had a panel, and I believe I am terrible with names. I apologize. It's Avi. I think it's Barzeev or something of that nature.
Avi Barzeev.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I got it. And his panel was about the metaverse and how it's mostly crap. And he broke it down in a way that was very easy to understand. Back in the 90s, the term that was the buzzword was cyberspace.
Oh yeah.
Now, when you talk about cyber, you're either talking about cyber sex or cybersecurity. Nobody really uses the term cyberspace anymore. So cyber as a term changed over time. And now everybody's using the term metaverse, except for me. I will never be using that term except for right now in this conversation. And he said, that's also going to kind of fall away. He said versing might be what you do when you're playing a multiplayer game. But like the metaverse is really a number of things coming together, mostly based around internet infrastructure and building on top of it. But the key to me, the thing that was very silly is something that he took from someone else, either on Twitter or on another social media platform, was the whateverse, which is whatever you want it to be, but just tell me exactly what it does and how I should be involved or something of that nature. And it really stuck with me. I thought it was really funny.
So he's basically also saying that he thinks that this name will in the end fail, right?
Yeah,
or become meta sex and meta security.
I like the thing.
That's already happening, man. Both of those.
Because the thing I always wonder is because if a tech giant so big as Facebook, Meta, is using it, there is no way it can fail. You know what I mean? Where you can put so much advertisement on billboards, on TV, like soon they're gonna imprint it into our minds with mind control and stuff. That there is no way that you can't say it's called metaverse. You know
I'm just gonna test that theory for a second.
Okay.
All right, Nathy, describe to me what is Betamax.
Betamax. I don't know why, but it's a good one. Yeah, I don't know.
So similar to HD DVD, it was the failure in a 2-class run, both of which were heavily marketed. And you would probably have said at the outset, you're like, these two are going to be there for the long term. And it's always been the case that one of these two has failed. Eric, can you tell us which one won?
VHS,
which might still be difficult for Nathy, which is
now I know, but
the magnetic tapes,
Betamax
right?
Sounds like super random.
I thought for a moment that Betamax was the maximization of few beta parameters in an algorithm, but okay.
Google, he's got Google on speed dial right there.
Rowdy's also correct.
Why would Nathy know this?
I had to pick on you, Nathy, for that one because is the reason. Yeah. But
the thing is, I don't really care if it's gonna be called Metaverse, the Grid, or Ready Player One stuff. VR Oasis. It's just that I don't want anyone to claim a name. That's all.
Right.
So if this guy is right or not, I do like his approach of also saying you make whatever. It's yours to share, yours to experience.
The whateververse.
Yeah, I'm actually going to toss his companion article, a link to it in chat on YouTube. So if folks want to take a look at that after the show, it's in there. You can scroll back. Trust me, it'll still be there.
Cool. Great, Eric. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on the current state and the things that you saw on AWE. If people want to follow you, where should they head over you? Where can they find you?
So there's two main places you can find me. On Twitter, I'm at eminus, EMINUS, and on YouTube, I make lots and lots of videos. You can find me at youtube.com/Eric Hartley. Happy to have conversations anywhere too. So if you go to one of these conferences, you'll probably find me.
Absolutely.
Best description of a channel ever. I make videos. Go check it out.
That's what I do.
That's what I do on YouTube. I make videos.
Right. I make videos. Not a lot of audio.
All right, great. So before I hand it over to Zim to talk about the releases, I'll have a word about our final sponsor, that is Synth Riders. Now, Synth Riders is a great, fantastic rhythm game from the team over at Cluj Interactive. They now also have a new mode available, which is already free if you already own the game. This mode is called Spiral Mode. It's a mind-bending new way to play Synth Riders like you never did before. Spiral Mode has 3 different intensities, each of which gives you more powerful turns and increases the challenge in general. You can enjoy this new mode in every song and difficulty. Use it also with most modifiers and also in all areas, including even multiplayer. So check out Synth Riders and their new mode available now on Oculus Quest, PSVR, and PCVR headsets. A link to the Quest version you can find in the description down below.
That mode,
and with that being said,
I got to comment on that. That mode, that spiral mode, is ridiculous. I thought it looked kind of like I could do that. It's hard, man. It's hard. You got to work your midriff at the same time as you're like thinking about these colored balls coming at you, and you're supposed to like lean with the thing. Rotate. It's freaking nuts, man. It's gonna take me many.
Have you tried all different difficulties already? Because they have 3 different
I'm talking about easy. I'm talking about easy and normal. Like, it is not... Obviously, Eric has tried this, but oh my god. What was your thought then, Eric, if you played it?
I got through about a song and a half, and I couldn't do anymore. I was kind of starting to get pain from it. It's very, very hard. Again, on easy, I was even playing pretty slow-paced songs, and it was hard. Yeah. But I do applaud them though for continuing to expand the game, even with that added challenge. I'm sure there are people that probably really enjoy it.
Yeah,
Eric Hartley.
Oh my days!
I cannot.
No, we're not going there.
I don't play anything on hard mode. I play everything in story mode or easy. Yes.
I never noticed that your last name is a difficulty. Yeah.
Hartley Eric. Yeah. Anyway, with that being said, we're gonna hand it over to Zim to kind of find out what is on our agenda next week. What do we have to look out for?
Oh man, I am so happy about releases this week. It's silly. So the first one of these, which is dropping on November 9th, is a lovely PC VR title. By the way, I'm not taking this one seriously at all. This is specifically for Mike because I ran across it and it's beautiful. It's called Virtual Cop, and it is Virtual Cop. Step into the shoes of a New Zealand police officer. Search for forensic evidence, connect with the community, and catch offenders in this immersive 3D experience.
Every day we're out here keeping
I'm not joking. This is absolutely brilliant. I mean, Virtual Cop is
he needs to play this.
The best thing that I've seen.
Beat up people that haven't done anything wrong.
It's ridiculous. So I mean, they talk about catching offenders in 3D, solve cases, meet your community, search for evidence, either VR or PC. The best part for me from the developer's side is that this is how they describe the game in the warning section. They say this game contains images of real firearms in the hands of trained New Zealand police officers. I found that tickling. But what's even better is the comment section. So three comments I'm going to run you through. Cucumber86 says, 10 out of 10 for realism. Spent 90% of the time giving out tickets for going 5 above the speed limit. Katzan says, had to stop playing at the part where you were forced by your superior to put down an old police dog because it outlived its usefulness to the police force. These are obviously New Zealand residents, right? The third and final one, best of the bunch for sure, was I was moved to tears by the domestic disturbance case, in which case a man beat the wife, and you also had to beat the wife in order to get her to admit that her husband was beating her. This is an intense, real experience and shows you the true meaning of why our brave men and women of the NZEDPD do every day.
Oh my god, I want to see videos of this game now. I'm literally crying. I am actually intrigued by this game. Oh my days!
So that is virtual.
This is why you want the Varjo Aero for this kind of stuff.
This game, exactly.
Yeah, this is why it's made. This is what it's
definitely
made for.
The winner here.
I can't even. I
didn't even know they had a police force in New Zealand.
No, I thought people were just generally friendlier down there. You know,
it's like I thought I was like a neighborhood watch or something. That's it. Like,
no, I want Mike to play this. Seriously, I want him to play.
The thing is, they have a budget, right? They have a budget for this stuff. They've created a VR and PC game. Like, I don't understand. I just don't understand.
To excite people to join the force like they did with America's Army game, you know? Where...
I suppose that's it. Yeah. For those who don't know, America's Army came out quite a while back where, you know, a substantial portion of American taxpayer money went into building 3 different first-person shooter games to incentivize,
by the way,
people who were like 16 to 22 to sign up for the army. Which, anyway, that was the treat for today. Okay, serious from here on in. No more giggles.
That's the best thing ever.
No more giggles. All right. And speaking of very serious games, right? We're gonna talk about
serious. Okay.
About one of my previous favorites, Medal of Honor Above and Beyond, which is coming, as we had before, surprisingly to Quest 2, and that's landing on November 15th. Now, I just wanted to mention, by the way, that Virtual Cop game is free, right? So go and play it.
Free.
That was free, yeah. This, however, is not, right? So you can play that one for free. This one's going to cost you $40 and around about £30. So developer Respawn brought about a kind of an arcadey World War II shooter, but it is given in 2 very important parts, right? It's got a pretty astounding single player campaign. It took a lot of flack when it landed on PC for a number of very good reasons. One of those, of course, being the capacity that it required, something like 300 gigabytes. And honestly, on Quest, where it's launching, it's probably going to have similar gripes because it's in excess of 50 gig that it takes up on your Quest. So it's going to be a difficult thing to fit on there if you're on a 64 gigabyte headset. That said, the second part of this that I think is very important, and I know Nathy has been a choir boy since the very beginning, singing the beautiful song of multiplayer in this game, it is a very astounding, well-developed multiplayer, great guns, beautiful levels, very well detailed. I'm very curious to see how that gets stripped back for Quest, like how much of that scene is going to still be present when we get it.
It doesn't matter. There are people actually walking around in the maps, and that's the thing that is going to make it succeed.
Is there any chance that this will be crossplay? No, right?
It is not crossplay, but interestingly, it is cross-buy, and it is selling on Quest for less money, which means if you want the PC version, don't buy the PC version, buy the Quest version, and you get the PC one for free, which is the higher detail and all of that. So if you've held off until now, I will again say this is in my top 5. I really, really like this game. If you like kind of a dumb action game, which has got silly characters, not ones that you really take, you wouldn't fall in love with them.
Goebbels, you mean?
The Goebbels.
Goebbels.
Or Ollie and the Goebbels.
Ollie and the Goebbels. Sounds like we're making up bands now.
Yeah, exactly.
How many albums do you buy, Nathan? How many vinyls? You got to come up with that.
Seriously, watch our show back where we first discussed Medal of Honor because Zim said it was his game of the year.
I loved it.
And we were like, what the heck are you even talking about?
Yeah.
Seriously, watch it back. It's great. No, it's great. And I still think it's relevant till this day.
Agree. Well, it's going to be the same game, right? So all of the comments that we made there, and it was good. It was a very heated conversation, very bipolar, right? 2 different, very completely different kind of sides and opinions. And I think it's important for people to kind of understand if they're going to lay down the money, what they're getting. Honestly, right now, I think it fits at a great point. Like this launch makes 10 times more sense than the previous launch. And I say that because, for example, things like Resident Evil just dropped, and people will have, like a smorgasbord, eaten all that up and been like, oh man, you're giving me good stuff, Oculus or Meta, can I please have more? And this is part of that more, I think. I think if you've just finished off Resident Evil, heck, jump over to this, you'll have a good time.
Although the big difference is this is a game built from the ground up for VR.
Good point.
So
and it shows. Yeah, it does show. So great. So that's number 2. We get that one out of the way. Now, for number 3, this one might be a surprise to some of you, and I'm kind of reluctant to say that I think in the last 3 years, since its original release, Windlands 2 has kind of dropped off the radar. But this is landing for our PSVR fans who, until date, have been stuck playing the original Windlands. What? And Windlands 2 is now coming 3 years later, right?
It wasn't?
November 26th. Was not on PSVR. Yeah, isn't that surprising? So it's taken them this time to basically get the port together and get it onto that platform. So
are the Easter eggs in there?
Are there Easter eggs in there? Oh, you. So in the I don't know. I actually was thinking that myself. In the PC build, you can find like F.Reality references. You can even find PSVR Frank. Nathy's there, Rowdy. I've got a little temple. Actually,
you got a temple shrine.
You can find it. It's freaking hard to find those, but yeah, absolutely, have a look. But it is a really astounding game. It's a first-person grappling hook exploration game. You can play it multiplayer. I actually find the multiplayer to be a wonderful swing-averse. Given we're just adding verse to everything today, and it's
swing-averse.
The bosses in it are really quite fun, like coming on to the first, then second, then third bosses. Even if you're doing it alone, I would say try to take it on a slightly higher difficulty. I actually played it and completed it on hardcore. I would go one notch down from the toughest would be my recommended setting for the perfect kind of Windlands 2 gameplay experience. Hardest mode, the hardcore, is a bit repetitive, especially when it comes to the tougher bosses. Like you'll be sat there for 45 minutes grinding and you just won't have as much of a fun time. But the game is very well made. And for those of you who've been begging for it on PSVR, now you can have it. I'm expecting it to be around probably $30, which is around the price of the PC game at the moment. But
yeah,
I don't know. I don't have the price.
But does this, of course, they can't confirm this, but let's say this seems to be also ready for the next gen PlayStation, and they kind of release it now, but they seem to be, I think, working on the next version too. So they're launching it so they can kind of, bug test some stuff and kind of have it already on there to then so like, oh, we got a remaster. Look at us, fancy. I'm sure that's the case, because why do you release it now? I mean, it's kind of random to me. Besides,
it is definitely random timing, right? Like to release 3 years later and then come to PSVR.
Super Nerd X brought up this needs to come to Quest. I do want to mention Windlands, the original, is now available on App Lab.
Yeah.
So if you search for Windlands Quest, I don't have the direct link, but that will take you to their App Lab listing. So if you're interested in Windlands 2 and you only have a Quest, you can at least pick up the original game. It is not. There's no multiplayer. The bosses and things of that nature aren't like. There's not as much combat and that types of things, but it's got that swing-averse that Zim was mentioning, and it is also a lot of fun.
It's more parkour. It's like swinging in parkour. I love the original Windlands. Like I think it's the perfect bite-sized game. I really enjoy it. Windlands 2 brought in combat, brought in a bow, which feel really great, and the characters feel kind of like anime-esque. And I like that they filled it out. I mean, they're both very different games. Windlands 1 is quite zen. Windlands 2 is like action adventure, with the multiplayer tack on. So if you've got some buddies, come along for that. Speaking of that, I got two brief mentions, things that didn't make my cut this week, but I think will also interest some of you. So the first one is Iron Rebellion. For those of you who are fans of like Vox Machina, which is a mech game in VR, again, a couple of years old, very well polished, excellent experience. This is maybe its first alternative that I've seen in that space. Now, at the moment, it's just a 1 versus 1 mech combat game. It's only being developed by 2 devs, and it is still very much an early access game. That is echoed many times over in the comments there on Steam, where you can pick this up for $15 or £11. So I would definitely suggest, if you're into mech stuff, you might want to check out Vox for now and kind of wait for this one to simmer a little bit more from what I've seen of it, what I've read of it. I haven't played it yet myself, but I do intend to jump in at some point. So are you guys mech fans, or not really your thing? The one thing I would say that's a detail here, which Vox doesn't do very well, is it has mappings for HOTAS setups. So HOTAS, gamepad, whatever you want, controller-wise, that's smart, because that anyone who wants to sit in their cockpit and drive a mech probably has a stick. So
yeah, and it is they had a public alpha and I don't know if beta was alpha or closed with multiplayer, and it is, as you mentioned, really still pretty early access, but it is a lot of fun as well. And at that price point, I'd say if you're into that kind of stuff, it's worth a gamble. It
exactly.
Really is.
And that's why I decided to mention it. There's a whole bunch of games launching around mid-month and that have already passed us by which I'm not mentioning here, just simply they just didn't make my cut. But chat, by all means, if you're having fun with something, drop it into chat. The last thing I wanted to remind, and this is a repeat from last time, is that if you're a PSVR owner, right, and you are subscribed to PlayStation Plus, you can get 3 games this month for free. I don't want you to miss that, so that's why I'm going to mention it again. Those are Until You Fall, The Persistence, which I'm showing, and The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. So all those 3 for free on PlayStation Plus. Definitely would incentivize me to maybe restart my subscription. Those are going to be available until the 7th of December. So, get in there quick and don't miss those this month. So that's it for our releases. Just a quick recap. That was Virtual Cop for free on Steam. Definitely play that one, lads. Medal of Honor Above and Beyond on Quest, and Windlands 2 coming a little bit later in the month.
Interesting. So one thing that I found very interesting in the comments, and I didn't think about this, is that we haven't seen much advertised for Medal of Honor for Quest. But maybe it's because they're still trying to get all the videos out from Resident Evil, all the 200 videos that they have.
Yeah, I know.
Because they keep on posting those like 5 a day of like, oh, did you know this and did you know that? But it is surprising. But yeah, this is as we said, a kind of realistic game. So World War II is not something to necessarily be like, hey, fancy, and we got this game, and maybe they're kind of careful with. But it is surprising for sure. I don't know why. Maybe they're gonna do it when it comes out, and then I don't know. I have no idea.
I was in a retail location, actually several recently, because I've been doing a lot of commuting to go to this conference, and what I've noticed is there is a substantial number of Quest 2 and Quest 2 accessories at every one of the places that stock it, at least here in the States. And there's a lot of signage for Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, but it's like it's over the top almost how much advertisement there is. They really bet on this as their big thing. Yep. Also, this Christmas it's gonna be. Medal of Honor isn't the most popular thing either.
It's like they put their eggs in the Capcom baskets.
Definitely, they definitely did that. Yeah, that's an understatement.
I actually really this is one of the things we tend to miss on this show, but I really appreciate that feedback about brick and mortar shops, because there was also the rumor that they were going to push into brick and mortar shops and help kind of uplift their presence in that space. I have mixed feelings about that. I'm not sure. I think you put a lot of money in there, you'll get a ripple of an effect. I think they're like the podcast has been saying, you bring the software, people will then buy headsets for the software. So I do think RE4 is, if you were going to make one bet this season, I do think that's smart. I don't think that setting up shop, in 100 locations across, for example, the North America, is going to really help the situation that much. They're going to be mostly abandoned. People won't want to go into that shop, especially post-COVID. I don't think that's a strategy they should really consider deeply, but let's see where it goes.
Yeah. All right. I think we've gone way over time, but that usually happens. I want to thank everyone for joining us in the chat and on the live stream. Really appreciate all the time. Eric, thank you so much for joining us on this show to give your experience and your feedback on the kind of things that you tried on AWE. We go live every bi-weekly, basically it is, right? Like every 2 weeks we go live once at 6 p.m. in the UK, 7 p.m. in Europe, and 1 p.m. for me, Eastern Standard Time. Thank you so much all for joining, and we'll hope to see you all next week. I hope I did a decent job.
2 weeks from now.
If I didn't, 2 weeks from now.
You did, Brownie. You held the ship. Thank you. Good ship captain.
If not, fear not. Mike will be back next episode.
Fear not.
All right. See you all. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye. Bye-bye.